outcomes of the commission itself. But I think even more importantly than, or just as importantly, Ashraf, on July 7th or July 6th, sorry, I don't get the date right, when we heard General Mkhwanazi, some of us conspiracy theorists, etc., might have wondered how much of what he is actually sharing with the public has any validity. And I think what the commission has done for us is that it has taken these rumors or, the accusations, the allegations, etc., and it's now solidified that for us. And it's provided us with information, actual evidence through the testimonies of names of people, whether they're in policing, general public or politicians. And it's given us the names, it's given us documentation, but it was also able to demonstrate some patterns within, especially policing, that was actually patterns that were undermining the system. So I think clearly that has come through for us. And I think the next one is the fact that we have a small cohort of corrupt police officials, but unfortunately they are citizens, and it was through their corruption that the South African Police Services in particular has been undermined and largely, or I think predominantly, informed by greed. And when we speak about the rot in the policing, we have now begun to see that it's not just individuals, but there are also systems within, for example, the metropolitans, the Ekurhuleni. We've seen it in SAPS that the systems are also not functioning the way they should be, and these individuals have actually exploited the non-functioning of these systems. I think, and I say, and I bring this much lower down, is also the fact that, the focus on the political task teams and the 121 documents that initially generated or began this conversation. I think through that process, what we were able to see is that it was not merely the geographical transportation of these 121 documents, but what lay underneath, what were the motives and agendas underneath all of these documents, or the actual transportation thereof. And I think very importantly as well, a big outcome is the whole notion of fear. Whether they fear that we have seen from witnesses, and especially witnesses, because we've seen that the request for protection has heightened. And then we also noted that because witnesses because of their own fear, they don't want to testify face to face. So I think that has actually become quite a new phenomenon through the Madlanga Commission, because by and large that didn't necessarily exist in South Africa. Also, of course, taking into consideration that this is not a court of law. But I think in the future, that might begin to feature as part of a policy initiative if we're really serious about resolving crime, and that witnesses are not afraid.
Well,
sorry,
so interesting.
I've said a mouthful.
No, you've said a lot, and I think there's a lot we want to pick up on. Let me do this. I want to also throw it open to the public, because if I asked you, give me 5 key points that have emerged from the Madlanga Commission, 5 key insights concerning today's day 100 of the Madlanga Commission, what would they be? So you've heard the thoughts of my guest, Professor Nirmala Gopal. You can add your thoughts to that. You can challenge it as well and talk about the why as well. In fact, we'll do that right after this.
EFC is live this Thursday. 2 athletes at the height of their powers fight for more than victory. They fight for the fight itself. Zakir Badat, 8 wins, all finishes. Zico Makengela, 5 wins, 5 knockouts. Champion and former champion collide in Africa's biggest welterweight championship fight. EFC 133, live from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
The East London IDZ, an entity of the Eastern Cape Department of Economic Development, Environmental Affairs and Tourism, presents the Eastern Cape Digital Economy Summit 2026, taking place from the 7th to the 8th of May at IDZ Conference Center, bringing together leaders, investors, innovators, and technology partners to shape the province's digital future. Investors ready to tap into the digital growth? Your next opportunity starts here. East London IDZ, business streamlined.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, let's get your thoughts. If you're up for it, you can call in live. Not quite now, but you can certainly WhatsApp us immediately to share your thoughts on 100 days of the Madlanga Commission, the key insights that you've got, and whether you concur or disagree, in this case, with Professor Nirmala Gopal. Now, interesting if I run through it, your first point about, in fact, your first point could be the last point as well, the fact that it's now a crisis of record, which we didn't have before, and that last part that you made, that in future you could see this becoming an actual court. How just tell me how important, therefore, this Commission being a crisis of record has been for South Africa as a country. Do I have you there? Prof. Gopal? No, we may just... Prof. Gopal, do I have you there, right? Okay, I think we're just struggling to connect with Professor Nirmala Gopal just for the moment, right? Let's see if we can reconnect in a second or two. Let me also tell you in the meantime, you can add your thoughts about the petrol price now that's going to go up over 3 rand something a litre. That's beyond the 3 rand something a litre the last time round already, right? We know that. I'm interested in not what you think, but how you're coping. How do you live with effectively a 6 rand petrol price increase over like a month apart, and that's still with those other subsidies still kicked in? Can you imagine when that is withdrawn, what's going to happen to the petrol price, right? Prof. Nirmala Gopal, I have you there, right?
Yes, you do.
Okay, thank you. We just lost you for a moment. So I was saying that, your first point about this being this crisis of record, right, is significant, and you also made the point that whereas at this point the Madlanga Commission is not a court of law, that could well be the case, that it becomes a type of court of law sometime down the line. Maybe not this commission, but something else. Let's talk about the significance of that.
Ashraf, I think that's what the South Africans really want, and there's a clarion call out to the president for that. Of course, it's not organized at the moment, but definitely randomly we see this call. And I think, if the president and together with the Minister of Police are able to work out what this court of law would look like, how it would operate, etc., I would actually support those voices that call for the Madlanga Commission to be a permanent part of the justice system, really, because I think what we've seen at the moment is the incredible work that they have done. I think we've seen the skill sets that they actually possess. The commission and vetting has to be extremely stringent in terms of who actually serves on that, if we want to call it a court, long-term court. I think the vetting has to be extremely stringent.
How the other part you made was the patterns of crime that's clearly emerged, and linked to that was this cohort of corrupt police officers, right? I mean, in many ways, it surprised many people, but in many other ways, it's not surprised many people. How, to what degree has this effectively destabilized our country? And those are strong words I'm using, in a way that, when we talk about, a crisis around xenophobia or a COVID-19, and we talk about the threat that has on destabilizing a country. Has this done that?
So I think it's really interesting that you use the kind of examples that you did, Ashraf. I think, in some ways it might have rocked us, but I don't necessarily believe it destabilized us, or debilitated us. The COVID-19, the xenophobia would have had its, different kinds of impacts, but they're very important to use as comparisons as well. But I think what it has done is it's shown us as South Africans, together with the powers that be, that the time was now absolutely relevant to deconstruct why the South African police services is not effective. And I think we've got huge answers to that question. So I think whilst we might believe that it has destabilized, I don't necessarily believe so. I think, and I've said this before, South Africans are what has been exposed, are also celebrating the fact that key actors within SAPS have actually been exposed, and once they are dealt with effectively, the mighty arm of justice is actually dealt upon them, then I think that would make it even more, the impact will be even greater for South Africans. And of course, whilst we know that this is happening and we're hoping that it will reduce crime, but what I think we didn't think about, Ashraf, is the amount of crime that exists within SAPS. SAPS focus was on, let's look for where we can intervene outside of SAPS. But in the meantime, it was what was happening within SAPS that had and has an effect on policing outside of SAPS.
Okay. What about, is it premature to speculate about life after Madlanga?
I don't think it's premature. I think that's something on most, especially those people, those of us who are really interested, addicted, analyzing what's happening and coming through the Madlanga Commission. I think it's actually a fear and an anxiety that we are sitting with at the moment. So
what do you think is then likely to happen? When we say life after Madlanga, what's likely to happen then?
For me, it's probably the status quo will continue to prevail. We will have reduced criminal activity slightly within the commission, especially those that were apprehended at this point in time or have been named. But I think there might be thousands of others that we are unaware of, and they will continue with their business as normal.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Professor Nirmala Gopal, Professor of Criminology at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Appreciate you joining us here on the National Pulse. Now, while we're talking about it, let's talk about health issues, understanding the hantavirus, what that really means. The NICD on alert for the hantavirus in South Africa. How much do you know about it? How much should you care? Right after this.
This May, SAFM invites you to be exposed and engaged in a different conversation. Not the Africa you think you know, but the Africa that surrounds you. What does it mean to be African today? In our politics, in our economies, in our cross-border movements, in our rich cultures, in our evolving identities. Every day we traverse this continent. 54 countries, 54 unique stories, one shared future. From Lagos to Nairobi, Accra to Addis Ababa, and right here at home. Because South Africa is not separate from Africa. It is a vital part of it. SAFM Africa Month. Conversations, context, connection.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, so let's look at the numbers here. 3 people have died. Another 3 are sick. This follows a suspected outbreak of the hantavirus, spelled Hanta, the hantavirus, aboard a cruise ship, the MV Hondius, currently off Cape Verde, right, which has 150 passengers on board. One of the infected is in intensive care in South Africa. Now, as I talk to you, the NICD is on alert for the hantavirus in South Africa. I believe that this cruise ship came from South America. We'll find out more about it. With me, Professor Tulio de Oliveira, Professor of Bioinformatics at Stellenbosch University School for Data Science and Computational Thinking, and the founding director of the Center for Epidemic Response and Innovation. Prof. de Oliveira, as always, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Yes, thank you, and good day to all your listeners.
Thank you. I mean, it's interesting when I speak to someone like yourself, and maybe Shabir Mahdi, the mind just drifts back to COVID-19. So what is the Hanta virus? Should we be concerned?
Okay, thank you. So hantavirus, as the name says, a virus, it normally infects rodents. This means all kinds of different species of rats and mouse, and normally it lives with the rodents, and then sometimes have transmissions to humans, and the transmission happen, from air drops that come from feces and urine and saliva of the rats, and then a human can become infected with that, and then can develop two kinds of diseases, either a hemorrhagic fever, a little bit like Ebola, that you start losing a lot of blood through the different areas in the body, or a kind of pneumonia, little bit like COVID, which normally get confused with flu in the beginning, that we start getting sick with infections in the lungs.
Okay. Do I take it from what the numbers suggest? It can potentially be fatal, as we've seen.
Yes, it can be fatal, and it especially be fatal, It depends of how you manage the patient. So, for example, the fatality rate, it range from around 1% to 40%. What it means, people that diagnose, sometimes if it's with the new strain of hantavirus, you can have a high case fatality ratio. This means every almost like 40% can die. Okay, and how do you manage the disease? So first, there is no treatment, there is no vaccine, but then what you're trying to manage, it is with the hospitalization to stabilize the breathing and to stabilize temperature until the person can clear the infection. But there is no need to your listeners to panic, because it's very difficult to catch a hantavirus. Every year we have a few thousand infections in the world, a lot of time in farm areas, and if you well manage, the treatment, or not the treatment, the symptoms, especially in hospital, and people isolate, they tend to recover and no transmission happens.
And let me go back to the end goal in terms of what may concern people. And I gave the example of COVID-19 earlier on, or the coronavirus, right? Is there any danger that this could reach even remotely close to those levels? Because, I mean, that's how it started, we understand, in China all those years ago.
No, we don't have reason to believe so. For example, the large outbreak that was found, and not surprising, it happened in the region that the boat left, the ship, it left from Argentina, it resulted in 34 confirmed infections and 11 deaths. So that's the largest outbreaks that have been recorded in Argentina. So we have reason to believe that Argentina has a relatively high levels of hantavirus, that people may have caught that before entered the boat or just by the boat, and as they were traveling, boats are also great place to transmit virus, because people get in very close contact, as you imagine if you're in a boat for a few weeks, that potentially was a chain of transmission in the boat, Why one of the individuals came to South Africa probably is mostly related that the boat stopped in Santa Helena. Santa Helena is an island that the sailors will know very well. So that's the island that all the sailors that sail from South Africa to South America stop. And there is a direct flight there, weekly one, to Johannesburg. So probably the patient was sick and then got the flight and came to Johannesburg, but was put straight into treatment.
Okay, so
into hospital.
very quickly, because I mean this will develop and we'll hopefully get a response from the Minister of Health as well. But for now, just a quick one on to news. Should we be worried?
I don't think that we should be worried. Yeah, South Africa has very advanced both surveillance system. Yeah, we have our team, for example, the NICD is already on top of the case, and we have very good isolation areas in hospitals because we got used to deal with TB and other infectious diseases.
Point taken. Professor Tulio de Oliveira, appreciate your time here on the National Pulse. News headlines now. Here's on Jella, 8:30.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, the Democratic Alliance is calling on Higher Education and Training Minister Buti Manamela to urgently account to Parliament on what it describes as a deepening governance crisis at the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi says that the department has involved the World Health Organization to seek its expertise following the confirmation of a positive hantavirus test result from a woman who died in South Africa from the disease. And Gift of the Givers has arrived in the Northern Cape following floods that have displaced over 2,000 households around Kuruman. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
This is SAFM Sports with Doming Kapele.
So to me, I mean, Keys has got a Man United top there. I thought I'd just tell you that. There's a couple of guys with Pirates tops, although the movies was Sundowns winning the league title. There's nobody wearing a Springbok Junior Springbok top, or the athletes. After all of that, what's top of your agenda?
You know what? Top of my agenda is just thinking about Botswana. I don't know if you saw all the clips from the World Athletics Relays in Gaborone.
Yeah.
Just that packed stadium, my goodness, I wish I was there, but it looked absolutely electrifying. And South Africa's relay teams achieved an outstanding result at the World Athletics Relays in Gaborone. They won 2 silver medals and qualified 3 different teams for the 2027 World Athletics Championships. The men's sprint and middle distance teams were the top performers. Both teams finished on the podium and set new South African national records yesterday. And national 400-meter champion Laith Pillay says that the rivalry between South Africa and Botswana is strong but very positive. Pillay delivered a historic run, clocking the fastest 400-meter relay split ever at 42.66 seconds, breaking the South African record and also moving up to 3rd in the all-time world rankings.
I mean, I want to say as much as we have a rivalry with Botswana, it's a healthy one, We always, even in the corridor, right before the race, first thing we said was, hey, we still have to fight each other to get that medal. But I think, for us, that's as countries, we're actually pushing each other, South Africa, after Wade sort of pioneered that 400 path for us, we weren't really seen as a 400 nation, neither was Botswana. Then you get athletes like Tebogo and Colin come through, and do incredible things. Now all of a sudden you have 2 nations, actually 2 neighbors, battling it out. And for us, it's always a thing of if it's not us, it's you. So I think I ran like a madman. So yeah.
I love how Botswana is actually owning this athletics thing, and I love how athletics is growing in leaps and bounds in the country.
Absolutely, because also now you see this is what happens when you have one Olympic champion.
Yeah.
The impact it has on an entire nation.
Remember, his face is also on the Pula.
Exactly. There we are.
Crazy. In football, Stellenbosch FC coach Gavin Hunt says that his side remain determined to secure a top 8 finish as they prepare to host Orlando Pirates at Athlone Stadium tomorrow evening. Hunt admitted disappointment at last week's loss to Polokwane City, but insists that Stellies still have a chance, needing 3 wins from their final 4 matches. He believes the wet Cape Town weather could work in the team's favor against the title-chasing Buccaneers, who thrive on pace and chance creation. Kick-off for that one is at 7:30. Elsewhere, Premier League action continues tonight with Manchester City facing Everton in a potentially decisive match in the title race. Everton will be without their defender Jared Branthwaite with a hamstring injury, and Jack Grealish is also out after an ankle injury. The rest of the players are fit. In terms of City, Josko Guardiola and Ruben Diaz remain sidelined, whereas Rodri is available, or his availability rather is deemed doubtful. Another clash to look forward to: Chelsea versus Nottingham Forest. In terms of rugby, Ulster head coach Richie Murphy says that his side are ready for a difficult URC clash against the Stormers in Belfast on Friday. The Irish province head into the fixture buoyed by a 29-12 victory over Exeter Chiefs that booked their place in the EPCR Challenge Cup final, and former Stormers loose forward Urano Augustus powered Ulster's semi-final win, while Murphy praised his team's set piece and defensive effort. In terms of cricket, Proteas women coach Mandla Mashimbi says that the team still has some work to do before the T20 World Cup in England next month. One key area is getting more comfortable playing against spin bowling. Although he is mostly happy with the team's preparation, he's very concerned about how the middle order batters handle spin, and he also believes this is an important area that needs improvement. South Africa will be hoping its third time lucky after finishing as runners-up in the last two editions of the tournament. Before I say goodbye, Ashraf, congratulations. Champions League next
You're
season.
telling me, like I run Man United.
Well, you always talking about Man
I don't
United.
own them. I mean, Keys owns them. He's got a Man United top on. You should check it out. All I can say is what I told Keys when he walked in, to think that if the coach, Amorim, had stayed maybe 2 weeks longer, then there's a good chance that Kobe Mainoo would have gone to another club on loan. What a footballer, which tells you how the destiny of a player in all sports can hinge on just what one coach thinks about them.
True.
Suddenly, it's a different ball game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
EFC is live this Thursday. Two athletes at the height of their powers fight for more than victory. They fight for the fight itself. Zakir Badat, 8 wins, all finishes. Zico Makengela, 5 wins, 5 knockouts. Champion and former champion collide in Africa's biggest welterweight championship fight. EFC 133, live from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Well, cutting your grass saves money, but you could really save by switching to Outsurance Essential Car Insurance. Made for older cars, 51-year-old Evelina pays only 474 rands a month for a 2013 Hyundai i130, and there's no upfront excess payable. So no unexpected out-of-pocket payments. Get Outsurance Essential Car Insurance today for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rands. SMS car to 43185. That's car 43185. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's, and information online.
Ashraf Garda is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
So here's a broad conversation we're going to have just right now. Why are Zimbabweans who are in South Africa, what has sparked off their move towards South Africa? What are the causes? I'm looking at personal stories that have affected families that make the decision to then come to South Africa. We'll talk about that shortly. In the meantime, you can comment via WhatsApp or live when we open the live calls. You can do that on the many things we've spoke about. The ongoing issues on the Straits of Hormuz and what that means. I mean, the petrol price going up, as you can see, a direct manifestation of just all of that, too, the result of that. But also the conversation I had early on with 100 days of the Madlanga Commission and the implications thereof in terms of, well, here it is. How will the Madlanga Commission change South Africa? It's a big question that requires a big answer. And then the hantavirus. Should you be concerned? Professor Tulio de Oliveira says no, but should you be concerned? People dying. Small numbers so far compared to COVID, but should we be concerned? Let's talk about Zimbabwe next.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation. You're listening to the National Pulse.
Well, it's the most interesting thing. I mean, amongst the many conversations we have about how many Zimbabweans live in South Africa, and then the ongoing, very topical conversations in recent weeks about how many of them are documented or undocumented, and what to do about those who are undocumented. How many of them are refugees, economic refugees, political refugees, those on holiday who've come here to live, who just seek other fortunes. People have different reasons for coming. The question is why? Why, in terms of numbers, why do so many Zimbabweans emigrate to South Africa? What is it that triggers that? Let's find out more about it with Dr. Chipho Dendero, who's an associate professor of the Africana Studies at the Wellesley College and African politics scholar who's written a book about just that and more. So appreciate your time, Dr. Chipho Dendero. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, it's a big question with a big answer required. Why do so many... why do so many, or just why do Zimbabweans migrate to South Africa?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question, but with a very simple answer, right? And as you said, I've written a book about it, but even before writing the book about it, I was very familiar with movement to South Africa. So the big question is, why is it that now more Zimbabweans are moving to live into South Africa, right? Instead of just visiting, which is what used to happen before 2000. And the simple answer is this. The two crises, political crisis and economic crisis, it drives out everyone, the poor, the middle class, the rich. Everyone wants to live because the conditions are untenable. They're either untenable politically, right? If you protest, you speak out, the government comes after you. They are untenable economically. You live in Zimbabwe, it is very expensive. Most people cannot afford every day-to-day basics. There are no jobs. So those are the simple reasons that are forcing people out of a country that they would otherwise not leave, right? Most Zimbabweans, like South Africans, would prefer to stay at home. They would prefer to study at home. They would prefer to be doctors and nurses at home with their families. But they cannot do that because it is the human condition. When conditions are bad, what do? We leave. And that is exactly what is driving millions of Zimbabweans across the border and into other parts of the world. A quarter of the Zimbabwean population has left the country since 2000. 1/4, that's almost 4 million Zimbabweans. And the majority of them, they're in South Africa.
Okay. So I mean, quarter is indeed a large number, which does suggest that they find, well, either deep resentment or the realities of a very difficult lived experience in Zimbabwe. What are the contributing factors then? I mean, you mentioned economic, but what are the overall contributing factors that has determined these families or these people that ultimately somewhere else is more appealing to live in than my home country, even though they get some things right? What would be those factors then?
Well, the economy is number one. It's always the biggest factor. The political conditions, number two. Safety. People want to feel safe. People want to live in a place where they know that they can contribute to politics and not have repercussions. I was joking with some South Africans this morning because someone posted a mean comment, let's say, to President Ramaphosa. And I said, this is what we love about South Africa, right? You can engage with politics and not fear for your life. In 2018, I was back home. I've gone home to vote in every election since I left when I was 18 years old. I've gone home to vote in every election. In 2018, I witnessed something I'd never seen in Zimbabwe. Soldiers on the street shooting at people. Even under Robert Mugabe, we would have protests. People would go, there would be police, tear gas. But these are things that you can plan against, right? But soldiers shooting at people, killing people on the street. 6 people died. There was a commission. That has not stopped Zimbabweans from protesting. But surely when the government is using such extreme forms of violence in response, it reduces the numbers of those who can protest, right? And so then the other big thing is, I don't want to lump everything in economy, but healthcare. Healthcare is a big push factor. Zimbabwe's hospitals that were once regarded as top in the region are now a basket case. Zimbabwe used to have the top cancer specialists in the region, not anymore. So when people are sick, where do they go? They cross the border, even for basic things like childbirth, right? Because that is a death sentence. And so the natural instinct for human beings is to leave and seek refuge somewhere else.
It's a fascinating thing. I mean, for many people listening, and they would take their own home countries for granted. As part of the book that you've written, right? These Zimbabweans then who've had to leave because they disgruntled and dissatisfied with their life in Zimbabwe, when they finally left, have you done research on how many of them are actually satisfied that they've made the right choice?
Many. And the book, I interviewed about 300 people. I worked on the book for a decade, so more than 300 people. I spent a lot of time in South Africa, a lot of time in Scotland, in the UK, traveling around the US and around the world. You know where the satisfaction comes, which is why the Zimbabwean situation is so depressing. They bring their skills. They're able to get jobs that might be 3 or 4 grades lower than their qualifications. But the satisfaction comes from, I get a paycheck every month. That paycheck is regular. That paycheck allows me to send money back home to my mother so that I can pay for healthcare. It allows me to send back money home so I can pay for school fees for relatives and so on and so forth. That is where the satisfaction comes in. But the homesickness is deep. You know what I actually thought was really interesting? Even people that have been away from home for 20 years or more, they will say, I'm building a house back home because one day I will go back home. One day I want to make sure that when I don't want to be old outside of my home country. So the desire to return is strong. That is why you see Zimbabweans that are in the diaspora have agitated, used their voices politically to demand a diaspora vote and say, if we can vote from abroad, then we can bring change back home, right? If we can agitate the international community to say, look, things are not great in Zimbabwe. When people protest, they are beaten up. How can the international community work with us to support our voices and demand that our government do the right thing? You have Zimbabweans saying to the international community, elections are a problem because the rigging doesn't happen on election day. The rigging happens before elections. So we want to make sure that there are international observers there. We want to make sure that the electoral process is smooth and clear. So the last election, I was back home to vote in 2023. And at the time, I was staying in Cape Town because I was doing research at UCT for my sabbatical. I was back from the US and at UCT. And, we went to vote. Most places did not get their ballot until 10 p.m. My sister, who was with me, we had to fly back to Cape Town because I have a small child who was back in Cape Town. Before she could vote, she was in line until 8 p.m., waiting since 6 a.m. to be able to vote, and she couldn't. And we had done the trips back and forth, right, to make sure that everyone in our family could participate. But even if people show up, if the ballots are not there, then people cannot vote.
Yeah.
If the ballot counting is not done correctly. And this is something where the UN, the AU, SADC, right, can really come in and say, here are people trying. How can we support that? How can we hold Zimbabwe accountable? Which is why on both sides, Zimbabweans and South Africans were very frustrated to see President Ramaphosa in Zimbabwe yesterday. And they're asking, how can you be there eating biscuits, drinking tea, when we are here fighting each other? Because the poor on both sides are frustrated.
Okay.
And here you are, elites.
Let's talk, just to conclude then, in the next minute, the name of the book, right? We mustn't forget where can we get it, but also very quickly, the Zimbabweans who are now living in South Africa, how do they respond to the growing tide of antagonism towards especially Zimbabweans who are undocumented as taking our jobs? How are they responding to that?
There's a lot of fear. People fear for their physical safety because they are only there because they want what is better for their families back home. They wish they could make enough money, go back, start a small business back home and not, cause conditions to be worse in South Africa. So there's a lot of fear. That's number one. Number two, the book is available everywhere where you buy books. But more importantly, I'll be on a book tour in South Africa at Wits, at Rhodes, at Nelson Mandela University this July. So if you're in the area, come see me. I hope to talk to you guys in person when I'm there about the book. The title, Death, Diversion, and Departure, it's that when people leave, politics becomes worse. When people don't participate in politics because they have died, they've been forced out, they're tired, they're scared, then authoritarian regimes win. So the lesson of the book, we have to keep engaging in politics.
You have to keep engaging, which is a call to many South Africans to appreciate your time. And thanks for leaving us with that, Dr. Ruchipho Dendere. Assistant Professor of Africana Studies at the Wellesley College and African Politics Scholar. And you can get her book. It's about everywhere. Just check it out. We'll try and get it tweeted out as well, or Facebook too, so you have it too. What about the RAF, the Road Accident Fund? There's some developments there that are quite significant after this.
Wherever you are in the world, SAFM 104 to 107 is accessible. We're also streaming live on Facebook, X, and YouTube at SAFM Radio. We acknowledge and appreciate everyone tuning in and watching our streams. Stay with SAFM 104 to 107 as we bring you Commission Live, breaking stories, and thought-provoking lectures. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, this one should tug at your heart. The Supreme Court of Appeal ruling against the Road Accident Fund is set to upend the personal injury system, with potentially thousands of claims now forced back to square one. What does this mean? With me, Chris Smith, partner at DSC Attorneys. Chris, thank you for joining us on the National Pulse.
Thanks for having me, Ashraf.
Thank you. So what is this Supreme Court ruling that so relates to, well, the Road Accident Fund, but by default and extension, it affects every one of us?
Well, a couple of years ago, in July 2022, the Road Accident Fund decided to unilaterally change the basic claim form that claimants had to submit to the Road Accident Fund when lodging a claim. And this claim form had many rigid and additional requirements to the original claim form, which made it very difficult and almost impossible for claimants to lodge a claim properly. So the matter went to trial, and the court found that this unilateral decision by the Road Accident Fund and the Minister to implement this report was invalid, and that they should revert to the old form that was initially gazetted.
And therefore, the implications to the public would be what then?
Well, there are literally thousands of claims. The last time I checked, there were about 75,990 claims that were rejected by the Road Accident Fund on the basis that it did not comply with the new, if I can call it the new form. So all these claims that have been rejected will now have to be relodged with the Road Accident Fund.
How, and then therefore I understand that, the logic would be that this could be incredibly disruptive. Tell me how that would be, and in what level of disruption are we talking about?
Well, you can imagine the claims handlers at the Road Accident Fund dealing with these matters were already overwhelmed by the amount of work that they had to do. Now, in a question of the next 5 months, they are going to receive those, which is probably more than 75,000 claims, to be relodged and reprocessed. I must say, in the same breath, a couple of these claims have actually we've been able to get the Road Accident Fund to register these claims, but they don't have the personnel to deal with it. So we do foresee a huge backlog and further disruptions at the Road Accident Fund.
Okay. Let's leave it at that. Appreciate your time, and I'm sure we're going to get reaction from people regarding the Road Accident Fund and this decision that can affect time here on the National Pulse. Time now to get to your comments. We'll do it in a moment.
Is there ever a bad time for a good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Right, let's get to you. I wonder what you're thinking. You certainly have your fingers on the pulse. I know that. The Madlanga Commission, 100 days. Now what?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. 100 days Madlanga Commission. I'm saying 10 out of 10. Full return on investment. Value for money. Absolutely. Thanks to the president, by the way, for selecting those fine men and women. Thank you very much.
Isn't it interesting at the time when it starts like, it's going to be a waste of time, and then you find these, as you say, fine men and women, and they grow on you, and you realize the great work they do. It's like, wow. JCK in Musina, go for it. 100 days of the Madlanga Commission. JCK, hello, you live?
Hi, Ashraf, are you well?
Yeah, I'm very good. What about you?
I'm not so well, man. How did we arrive here? We're no more safe, man.
We what, sorry?
I mean, we are no more safe in South Africa, man. South Africa is like a low-hanging tree of a fruit, man.
Yeah, I know. Look, I know we're no more safe. We haven't been safe for a while, right? But perhaps if I move forward to the conversation, therefore, the 100 days of the Madlanga Commission, what has that served for you?
Yeah, I mean, the fact at any base. The fact at any base. You know, our government is just ignoring the basics to run the country. Or maybe they don't know how to run the country. If you run the country, you must know who is in and out of the country. Today we have got mercenaries, we have got fugitives, we have got ex-soldiers who are not accounted for. And the government is aware of that and they are failing to act. It's time government wakes up from the bed.
JCK, I'm interjecting only because we know about the problems, but the specific question is what impact is the Madlanga Commission making and what would life be like after the Madlanga Commission? The fact that we have problems, I think we know that. Yeah. You get my point, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I do get to your point, but it's time the government do something about it. Not everything must wait for Madlanga. The government must just wake up and smell the coffee and do the right thing. I mean, we need safety and security. That's clear. That's all.
Okay. Got that. We need that. That's all. Will the Madlanga Commission ultimately serve that role? If it can clean up the police service and therefore we have a completely trustworthy police or law enforcement service, then maybe we're much safer. Yeah? Sounds pretty simple. Melenze in Richards Bay, you live. What's your point?
Yeah, I want to comment on Madlanga quickly, Ashraf. I've got mixed feelings with Madlanga Commission. One feeling is a very positive feeling that they are doing a good work, and we are very much happy as a country because we can see the return on investment like the previous caller has just said. But the negative feeling is that it seems like now at a later stage of Madlanga, they are focusing more on metros, on the corruption on metros, leaving the real matter crux of what they were established for, which is the political interference in police services, in South African police services, and the corruption emanating thereof. That is one, on the negative side. Two, they are untouchable in this country. I'm not sure why the gentleman by the name of, now this guy is going out of my mind, Manuela or something, that guy who's linked to Cyril Ramaphosa, President Cyril Ramaphosa. I'm not sure why he's not being called there, that guy. I'm not sure why TK Molife is not being called there. I really don't, I'm not sure why those people are not called there. And I'm not sure why Richard Sibia is still roaming the streets of Johannesburg.
That may still happen. You know, there's still a few months to go. Like, you know, for example, the possibilities of now investigating issues in Joburg may come up next. So, I mean, there are processes. They take a while. Okay, but I'll leave it at that. You've made your point, Melenze. Thanks for that. In Richards Bay, I'll try and squeeze in one WhatsApp comment about Zimbabwe. Here's one.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. You know what? The lady who is talking about Zimbabwe situation, she's right. I have told myself that it's better to be killed by a South African or a somebody that I don't know who is not my fellow countryman than to be killed by the person that I know is my countryman. So if I am here, better they can kill us because there's nothing that we can do. In Zimbabwe, we are also killed because when we want to try by all means to do the election, to vote, there is rigging. When we try to strike, there is shooting. So there's nothing we can do. Anonymous.
Thanks for that, Anonymous. But that's a strange thing. Better to be killed by a South African than a Zimbabwean. I mean, if you're dead, you're dead. Like, it's horrific no matter what. I mean, that's like saying, if I die, I prefer to die in the daytime and not at night because when I die at night, it's so dark. You know, something along that line. Let's get the news. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the top stories, Higher Education Minister called to account to Parliament on NSFAS and WHO to get involved in hantavirus. For SFM News, I'm Ondalambana and a very good afternoon. The Democratic Alliance is calling on Higher Education and Training Minister Buti Manamela to urgently account to Parliament on what it describes as a deepening governance crisis at the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. This follows the resignation of NSFAS Interim Board Chairperson Dr. Mokoena Maluleke and reports that at least 7 board members have resigned since July 2025. This has raised serious concerns about the board's ability to function effectively. The scheme is facing challenges including funding delays and administrative failures. Day spokesperson on Higher Education and Training, Dr. Delmaine Christians.
Even more concerning is the apparent breakdown in the relationship between the minister and the board, raising serious questions about accountability, due process and institutional independence. At a time when NSFAS is already struggling with weak financial controls, failing systems and ongoing disruptions to student funding, this instability is unacceptable. Students cannot be caught in the crossfire of leadership failures. The minister must act and he must account.
Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi says that the department has involved the World Health Organization to seek its expertise following the confirmation of a positive hantavirus test result from a woman who died in South Africa from the disease. The woman had been on board a Netherlands-based cruise ship that was struck with the hantavirus outbreak, leading to the death of 3 people, with 3 others falling sick. One of the sick passengers is in ICU at a Campton Park hospital. Motsoaledi elaborates.
The results of the lady came out, unfortunately, is positive for hantavirus also. The people who trace contacts are well versed with that issue. They know exactly what to do. And this is a multi-country thing. We have involved the World Health Organization. You know, they've got expertise in any field of health and they will help us. When you do contact tracing, you trace anybody who you know could have come in contact with the patient, and that's definitely what's going to happen.
Gift of the Givers has arrived in the Northern Cape following floods that have displaced over 2,000 households around Kuruman. Over 80 villages are affected by the floods, with some completely cut off. The Department of COGTA and the disaster management team are finalizing plans on how aid should be distributed. Kobina Makreling is with the Gift of the Givers.
Food parcels, blankets in hygiene pits for those people in the villages who do this good care. We have a team from Cape Town and a team from Joburg. Joburg's team is on their way. At the moment we are busy organizing some e-support to get them the basic necessities. The food parcels will last roughly 1 to 2 weeks. The blankets will last longer obviously, and then the hygiene pits also 1 to 2 weeks. For now we are here for the whole week.
Water in areas including the Tandanani informal settlement in Welkom in the Free State has started to subside after flooding displaced many residents. Authorities have traced the source of the flooding to overflowing dams at nearby farms following heavy rains. Some residents whose homes were waterlogged have been relocated to the Kopanong Indoor Sports Centre in Tabong. The Lijola Budzwa Disaster Management Centre says although conditions are improving, it is not yet safe for affected residents to return home. This as more rainfall is expected tomorrow. Judgment has been reserved until Thursday in the fraud, racketeering and money laundering case of self-proclaimed prophet Shapat Bushiri's co-accused. The defence has filed an application requesting the High Court in Pretoria to set aside the April 2026 judgment that dismissed their application to recuse 2 prosecutors assigned to the case. Willa Mudolo, who is a Zambian national, is a key co-accused in the 102 million rand fraud, theft and money laundering case involving Bushiri. He appeared along with his wife and 4 others. Modolo's legal representative, Advocate Mandla Hlatshwayo, has threatened to approach the Constitutional Court if the court proceeds with the trial.
We can't go back to the injustice of the past. We can't. Because that's exactly what was happening in the past. Rights of people, the courts never cared about them. Even the manner in which evidence was obtained, they never cared about them. We can't go back there. If we could go back there, then Bram Fisher and them died for nothing. They fought for nothing. So my submission is, we just can't even touch on that point. My submission is, The rights of the accused are being infringed as we speak. As long as these two prosecutors are part of the prosecution team, the rights of the accused are being infringed. Accused 1 and 2 are not going to have a fair trial.
Recapping the top story, the Democratic Alliance is calling on Higher Education and Training Minister Buti Manamela to urgently account to Parliament on what it describes as a deepening governance crisis at the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. I'm Mundalambana for SFM News. Headlines at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Monday afternoon's drive home looking like this, very heavy on Malabongwe Drive. It has been for the last couple of hours. Malabongwe Drive from the M1 highway going out to Bel Air's junction in the North Riding area. Very slow moving there. The highway's not too bad. The N1 south down to William Mandela is slow. N1 up through Midrand looking okay. The M1 through Pretoria moving quite nicely as well this afternoon, which is good. Let's have a look at Durban, in particular N2 Spaghetti Junction. If you're running northbound, it's okay. Southbound, there's a breakdown near Clare Road Bridge coming through Nunda Road over Umgera Road down towards Spaghetti Junction. So there's a bit of a backlog as well on the N3 outbound today, just through Sherwood towards Spaghetti Junction. Traffic heading out of Durban is quite slow. The N3, Cliffdale and Key Ridge looking okay. Ashburton, Pietermaritzburg also checking fine as well today. Cape Town side, if you're heading out of the city centre, the N1 not too bad. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard queued out to Hospital Bend. Also the main road, Victoria Road main road through Salt River down to Observatory is quite slow towards the N2 highway, and the M5 running southbound, queuing from the Kuberg Road at Brooklyn down through towards the N2 highway exit. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
And Proteas woman coach preparing to face Spain at T20 World Cup. More details at 4:30.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 106.1 FM in Bombela. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So, listen, to pick up on that conversation we had earlier on, if you are from Zimbabwe, why are you in South Africa? And I don't mean an academic answer or a political answer. On a very personal level, why are you in South Africa? What's been your trigger for you to come from your country to live in this country? I also believe it's expected to snow in the Eastern Cape tomorrow. So I hear. We'll talk about that too. There's been developments of huge concerns about vehicle procurement for traditional leaders in KZN. We'll talk about that. We'll get two different takes on that one, including later on the city of Cape Town considering challenging legal options after a recent High Court ruling on municipal charges were in favour of the South African Association of Property Owners. We'll talk about that too. This is the National Pulse.
No one gets fit overnight. It takes discipline, and your money is no different. A Nedbank 32-day notice account helps you build financial strength with up to 7.3% interest and zero maintenance fees. The higher the deposit, the higher the return. Invest in under 2 minutes on the Money app and get money fit with Nedbank. For more information, go to nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank, we're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
This May, SAFM invites you to be exposed and engaged in a different conversation. Not the Africa you think you know, but the Africa that surrounds you. What does it mean to be African in our politics, in our economies, in our cross-border movement, in our rich cultures, in our evolving identities? Every day we traverse this continent, 54 countries, 54 unique stories, one shared future. from Lagos to Nairobi, Accra to Addis Ababa, and right here at home. Because South Africa is not separate from Africa. It is a vital part of it. SAFM Africa Month. Conversations, context, connection.
Ashraf Garda is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
There you are. What is it? If you are born in Zimbabwe, or that's home, that's caused you to leave? What are the factors that has caused you to leave? And when you have now, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years later, you find with the decision you've made, has it been better for you and your family, which would probably be the number one factor people leave anyway. They see a brighter future elsewhere, right? Okay, let's talk about this. There's been concerns raised over vehicle procurement for traditional leaders in the KZN region. With me is firstly Marlene Nair, the DA KZN spokesperson for the Kokta Portfolio Committee. Marlene, appreciate you joining us on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much, Ashraf, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Right, I understand that your party has raised issues of concern around misappropriation of funds and lack of transparency in the purchase of vehicles for traditional leaders. But you tell us more.
All right, so it's not misappropriation of funds. I would say the reprioritization of funds. So our concern was that 19.4 million rand was reprioritized away from the filling of vacant posts and procurement of service in order to buy these 30 vehicles for traditional leaders or traditional administrative centers rather. So the real concern is not really the amount, but whether this is sustainable and how it's affected other departments. So we've sought clarity on this in terms of the disaster management, administrative functions, and so on. It would be, interesting to see how the department is affected because of this reprioritization. The other concern is whether this is sustainable. So we have over 300 administrative centers, traditional administrative centers in the province. And so this is supposed to be rolled out over the next 3 years or so. And given the fact that there hasn't been a dedicated budget for this purpose, how, where are funds going to be reprioritized from in the next couple of years? That is a concern for us, and how it's going to be affecting the core mandate of the Kokta department.
If I understand that, are you then, what you're talking about, are you talking about a budgetary issue, or are you talking about specific concerns around traditional leaders, meaning that they don't deserve to receive monies for vehicle procurement in this case, or in fact they do deserve it, but we just can't afford it?
Yeah, absolutely not. They do deserve it. They do deserve to have the proper tools of trade. One of the key things that we must remember is our traditional leaders are first responders on the ground. They help coordinate during times of disaster. They're closest to the residents. They always bring community stability. So they do deserve it. The concern is whether this is going to be sustainable. What we don't want is to start a project and not be able to carry through. Now, I think it was just 31 traditional administrative centers that receive these vehicles, and we've got over 300 in the province. So we obviously want to know how is this going to be rolled out, whether this is sustainable, where the money is going to come from, and so on. Because you would understand that KZN municipalities are under severe pressure, and we want to ensure that there's enough capacity from the department side to support and monitor these municipalities. And we don't want to take away from the budget that is set aside for the support and monitoring of municipalities. But of course, our traditional leaders deserve this. They need that kind of support. And so I believe that we need to explore other ways of supporting them and helping them become self-sustainable in the long run.
What would be those other ways?
Well, one of the ways is that, the department needs to explore and assist them becoming economically active by capacitating them, helping them with, private partnerships, coming into partnerships with the private sector. We've got a whole lot of land in KZN. So that land needs to be put to good use. There are lots of, international models where there are traditional leaders and land, models that we could, explore and bring into KZN. And I've spoken to the MEC about this. This is something that we need to explore so that we can better assist our traditional leaders making use of the land that we have.
So what then are your thoughts, moving away from vehicle procurement, just the general position of your party, the DA, with regards to the maintenance, if I may say that, of traditional leaders in the country?
You would say the maintenance. When you say the maintenance,
just in general upkeep of supporting them. Of course, cars would be one thing, but there are many other things too.
Well, we do support them. You would notice that a lot has been done recently to assist them. Like I said, we need to explore other ideas because the budget that we have, you would know that almost 80% of the COCTA budget goes towards sustaining the traditional leadership. And we've often spoken about, whether National can assist in taking over the payments of the traditional leaders. But like I said, the main idea that we have, the main position, is that we need to explore making use of the land that we have so that they can be better funded and assisted. Because what we are doing, I believe, is not sustainable in the long run, being as though there are many budgetary constraints and budget cuts within the province, and especially to COCTA as well. So it's a balancing act. We want the department to be able to support municipalities because ultimately, all these traditional leaders live in municipalities and they need these municipalities to function properly. They need the disaster management department to be able to better serve residents on the ground. So it is in their interest as well that municipalities function well.
How do you think this will end? I mean, one thing is reflecting a position as you've just done, but there's the practicalities, and many will talk about budget constraints. So therefore, how do you think this will all end?
Well, I can't really preempt how it's going to end, but we need clarity. I think that's the first step, is to emphasize that we are not against it. And I've spoken to the department as well concerning this. We are not against it at all. What we need is clarity, and we need to understand that this is sustainable. And we've also, because this is public money, we want transparency in this regard. That's why we've even asked about the allocation. How are these vehicles allocated to the traditional administrative centers? How were the first 31 chosen? Because what we don't want is the rest of the traditional administrative centers to come forward and say, listen, where are we on the list? When are we going to be able to receive these vehicles? If in a year or 2 years this is not sustainable, then those traditional administrative centers will be disadvantaged, and that can be very problematic. So fairness, sustainability are the main issues for us.
Fairness and sustainability. Let's leave it at that. Marlene Nair, the DA KZN spokesperson for COCTA's Portfolio Committee. In fact, we'll get the COCTA KZN responding to that issue in a moment.
When Avukile was diagnosed with blood cancer, his only hope was a stem cell transplant from a matching donor. Thankfully, a perfect match was found, and Avukile received the transplant that saved his life. But thousands of patients in South Africa are still waiting to find their match. Together, we can give more patients like Avukile a second chance at life. Visit dkmsafrica.org.
This is an SABC-supported initiative.
OUTsurance can't improve your karaoke skills, but they could improve the car insurance premium you currently pay. SMS out to 30754. Get a quote today, and if OUTsurance can't save you money on your car insurance premium, ask for 500 Rand cash. Make that 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get a quote and get savings or cash. Either way, you win. SMS out to 30754. Want all the bells and whistles of car insurance at a great price? It's time to switch to OUTsurance. Not only could they save you some big bucks, you also get the legendary out bonus that pays you a percentage of your premiums back if you're claim-free. So, are you ready to switch and save? Don't miss out. SMS right now to make sure you always get something out. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Outsurance. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Mavis, I wonder if I should sell my car. I'm not sure where to go.
Wanna sell your car, but don't know what to do. You don't have to go far, we come to you. If you're rolling on a 1.5 or a Lacquer 2.2, doesn't matter what you drive, we buy cars once you.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, so you had the DA perspective about they're not against the issues of providing funding for vehicle procurement, in this case for traditional leaders, but they certainly have an issue with just how much is being spent and whether they've got the money to do so. So let's get another perspective on it. We joined by the MEC of Kokta to clarify this. So Thulasizwe Buthelezi, KwaZulu-Natal Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs MEC. Appreciate your time, MEC. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and the listeners of SAFM.
Thank you. You've obviously heard what the DA has said. What do you feel about it?
Well, it's a pity, Ashraf, because the DA spokesperson is speaking from both sides of her mouth. In the one vein, she says traditional leaders should get the tools of trade. In the other vein, she says it's not sustainable. So it's really a pity because she is also the chairperson of the portfolio committee. And on this very issue, we have set the 15th of May so that all political parties get the equal access to information. But now she is coming as DA, wearing that cap to score political points at the expense of the dignity of traditional leaders, which is very unfortunate. Because what is the value that we place on Amakosi? If it's not sustainable, who is going to make it sustainable? Surely because there are 300 traditional councils, does it mean we should do nothing? Because the challenge is insurmountable. You know, this program is taking place for the first time in 20 years, when nothing has been done for Amakosi in KwaZulu-Natal. And this initiative, which we thought parties like the DA would support, they are now punching holes when nothing has been done before. This is the first of its kind. And this program is sustainable because Amakosi are part of the legislative framework of the country. We will budget just in June. I will be handing out 36 more vehicles because this is a new financial year now, 2026-27. And we will continue with this program until we reach everyone.
What is there any concern? I mean, you're right. You're talking about the dignity of traditional leaders, but is there any concern that sometimes how much is too much? I mean, we make the same conversation regarding MPs, for example. It doesn't mean that one may be dignified in ensuring they are dignified, but the point is there's just only so much money that you can allocate to them based upon your own budgets.
You know, Ashraf, 800 million is being spent on civil servants who are being paid while sitting at home doing nothing. And yet we spend 20 million rand on Amakosi. And it's a big brouhaha now, and it's a big issue, as if we are doing something wrong, simply because Amakosi must constantly justify themselves and justify their existence, even in a democratic country. It's very unfortunate. The patronizing tone and the condescending attitude which is shown to Amakosi, particularly on this matter. You know, one gets the impression that it means Amakosi must ride bicycles and they do not need to have access to a dignified mode of transport to do their work.
Okay, let's talk about the numbers then. I mean, so, how many, as you said, the Amakosi, how many of these traditional leaders are we talking about? How much is spent regarding them over vehicle procurement, right, for example? And how does that fit in with your disposable monies that you have within COGTA, for example?
But the core mandate of COGTA is to support the institution of traditional leadership. That's the core mandate. So I don't know what other core mandate the DA spokesperson, Ms. Naya, was talking about, because money which goes to municipalities is paid directly to municipalities from National Treasury. It's not done via COGTA. So the core mandate of this department is to support, maintain, and enhance the role of traditional leaders to do their work. So this is the core mandate we were doing. Unfortunately, we don't have enough funds. If we had more funds, we would do much more for Amakosi. But with the little that we have, it's going a long way in restoring their dignity.
Okay. Is there anything, I mean, in the light of what you've said, and you made the point about the DA's position on this one, is it simply a case of, they have their views, you have yours, and it's just political posturing, or is that something that you would like to address and tell them directly?
Well, it really reveals a deep-seated ignorance on the role of Amakosi. And the path we have traveled to restore the status of traditional leaders in South Africa, it reveals a very deep-seated attitude that Amakosi should accept less when they are the custodians of our culture, when they are the custodians even of service delivery. And we are told, no, they must go and look at the land because they have access to land. They must utilize the land. It's very patronizing that in this day and age, our own traditional leaders whom we respect and whom all these political parties go to ensure peaceful elections must be denigrated in such a manner.
Okay, clearly you're not happy with their position. Appreciate your time. The MEC, the KZN MEC for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, MEC Thulasizwe Buthelezi. Thanks for that. I wonder, you've heard two parts to that story from the DA perspective and from the MEC himself. Where do you fit in on this? In terms of support for traditional leaders based upon the budget that the KZN province has, how much is enough? Do they need to cut down, as has been suggested? Or is there another solution around this? Is there anything we need to be talking about here regarding that? There's been news that NSFAS has been placed under administration. That's quite significant. Minister Buti Manamela is saying poor governance, maladministration effectively fed into that decision. And there's another comment. Hi, Ashraf, I came to work for a living wage in South Africa so that I can provide for my family. I could no longer provide for my family. As way back as the year 2007-8, Zimbabwe state apparatus is used to ruthlessly crush any citizen protest, even for living wages, and that comes from Anonymous, right? There's more thoughts from you. Let's pick up those WhatsApp comments. Really appreciate you doing that. There's more on Zimbabwe.
Good evening, Ashraf. How are you, Marcella, here? I hear the lady from Zimbabwe, but I don't think that her analysis are neutral because she's a runaway herself from Zimbabwe. So she's just going to give us something that is biased. But anyway, that being that as it may, Ashraf, if these people are running away from Zimbabwe as they claim to be persecuted, who do they think will fix their country? Because this happens here in South Africa. Some of the people ran away to England, but we stayed here and then we fought. We faced bullets. What she's talking about soldiers shooting people there, it's nothing. In South Africa, there were bullets. People were dying every day, but we stayed here. I think the question is, who's going to fix Zimbabwe?
Well, I mean, that is a valid question. And although I'm not too sure which South Africa you're talking about, the old or the new, because she's talking about a democracy, and many others are also saying so that by and large in Zimbabwe, the allegation is you can't really protest against the leadership, in opposition against the leader of the country in a way that you can do in South Africa. 4:30, here's the news headlines with Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, we start with the breaking news. The Minister of Higher Education and Training, Buti Manamela, has put the National Student Financial Aid Scheme under administration. This follows challenges with the scheme's leadership following recent resignation of some board members. During a media briefing in Pretoria, Manamela highlighted issues of poor governance and maladministration as some of the reasons for this decision. Health Minister Aaron Motsoaledi has called for calm as details around hantavirus cases in the country emerge, and disaster management teams in the Ugu, Zululand, King Cetshwayo and Umkhanyakude districts in the south, east and northeast of KwaZulu-Natal are on high alert. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Gous.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
All of a sudden, the N1 through Midrand getting busy with two breakdowns, one before New Road, one after New Road on the northbound side. Traffic very quickly backing up into Buccleuch interchange. It looks heavy as you start that run through Midrand. The N3 going south has a crash at Marlborough Drive, so from Buccleuch, as you line up towards Limbro Park, that's quite heavy as well. And the Mike 1 from Houghton, pretty slow all the way through to the Crown interchange. Malabongwe Drive queuing out from Stratham Park through the highway and into the North Riding area. Durban's N3 from Sherwood, all jammed up out towards Spaghetti Junction, moving a little bit better than it was earlier, but very slow. And then further out on the N3, again, there's a couple of breakdowns just between Pavilion Mall and the M13 Paradise Valley split. The N3 heading out to Pinetown, quite heavy. Breakdown still with us, N2 south after Umgedi Road. That's pushing a queue almost back as far as Queen Nundy Drive. Cliffdale, Key Ridge and Ashburton, Pietermaritzburg sections looking fine. Just been a crash in Cape Town. It's on Helen Suzman Boulevard at Beach Road. That's out in the Greenpoint area. That unfortunately involves a fatality, likely to be slow. M5 fairly heavy from Brooklyn Kuberg Road side all the way down through to the N2 highway, and Viking Way leaving Epping quite a backlog to get through the N7 Jakes Kerwell Drive junction. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sports with Doming Khapele.
Okay, Timmy, you know the age-old debate, government in sport. Tell me about that.
Government and sports indeed. Well, Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie says that the department will take over the Soweto Marathon and press criminal charges against the organizers and pay the 2025 winners their prize money, which has gone unpaid for 5 months. Despite taking place on the 29th of November last year, top finishers have still not received any prize money 5 months later. And I guess the big question is, how is the government going to run the Soweto Marathon? Is it even allowed that a government runs a marathon this big? How's it going to happen?
Why can't they call it the government marathon?
I'm just wondering how's it going to work. But yeah, this thing that is happening with the Soweto Marathon is just a big mess. In terms of football, Mamelodi Sundowns coach Miguel Cardoso has refused to get carried away after his side opened a 5-point lead at the top of the Betway Premiership with just 3 matches remaining. The reigning champions delivered a commanding 3-0 victory over Polokwane City at Loftus Versfeld yesterday, just days after edging the same opponents 1-0 in a far tighter contest in Seshego. Now, despite strengthening their grip on the title race, Cardoso remained composed when asked if the situation now favors the Brazilians.
I think we need to score all the points we have ahead. It's a story to be written, and we have to do it so that if we want to succeed 100%, because then we can depend on the others, of course, and we should not. We should just focus on ourselves. There's a match that is like the ones we've been playing high level, because we are in a moment that all matches become high level, and relate with the situation and try to make as best as possible. It's a big, beautiful challenge ahead, of course, because basically it's almost a 1 week and a half, and everything will be finished. So it looks 3 matches, but it's 1.5 weeks. And we need to be very, very, very strong on the way we approach every match, like we've been trying to be, and I think quite consistently showing that. So that's where we need to continue to be. Match by match, day by day, managing contexts and trying to be performance as much as possible.
Elsewhere, Tottenham boss Roberto De Zerbi says that he is proud of his side's turnaround, but cautions against forgetting how close they were to relegation just a week ago or weeks ago. Spurs were 18th in the Premier League table after his first 2 games in charge, but back-to-back wins over Wolves and Champions League chasing Aston Villa have lifted them into 17th place with 3 matches remaining. And De Zerbi praised his players' resilience, but reminded supporters of the battle still ahead as Spurs fight to secure survival. In terms of rugby, Junior Springboks captain Riley Norton says that there is no need for added motivation when they face New Zealand, even after wrapping up the Under-20 Rugby Championship title with a game to spare yesterday. Results elsewhere worked in South Africa's favour, with New Zealand losing to Argentina earlier in the day, while the host power to a commanding 56-17 win over Australia to stay unbeaten. They now meet New Zealand in their last fixture on Saturday, the 9th of May, in what may be a dead rubber on paper. But Norton says that the rivalry ensures intensity will remain high.
I think, obviously, I actually didn't know that we had won it, but I think you naturally will be up for a game against New Zealand. I think it's one of our biggest rivalries. We have a lot of respect for them, and I think if we take our foot off the pedal now, that's when rugby can come and bite you. So we know very well and truly that we can't take our foot off the gas. We can even go even harder. We can push ourselves and we can finish off this tournament with a lot of pride. Obviously, playing in front of our fans, playing at home, people have come out today and hopefully next week Saturday to come and watch us, and we don't want to disappoint them, and I think we also don't want to disappoint ourselves. So there's a lot of motivation coming. I don't think that will be a factor at all. I think we want to finish as best as we can and just carry on improving.
In hockey, South African hockey has unveiled the SA indoor men's squad for the 2026-27 international cycle. The group blends established internationals, proven domestic performers, and also emerging talent, setting the foundation for the next phase of the competition. Captain Dejan Kasim leads alongside the likes of Jethro Eustace, Ryan Julius, and Mustafa Kasim, providing continuity and leadership. And convener of selector Steve Evans says that the squad balances immediate performance with long-term growth, marking the start of a new cycle building towards 2029. I'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
It's an interesting one about that Soweto Marathon that you talk about, isn't it? The role of government, because they say they're taking over. So, I mean, they can't take over permanently, can they? Can
no,
they take over
I don't think they
campaign?
can. But also, who owns the Soweto Marathon now? Like... Some people are just saying perhaps Soweto Marathon needs to be scrapped, but it's a race that has a rich history, and it would be sad for us not to have that marathon anymore. However, it seems like the administration in it all is just not making sense, because the sponsor, African Bank, had said all the money was given in, and they had expected that by now the winners would have their money. But still. So
that hasn't happened. Yeah.
It hasn't happened.
Sure. Okay. And by the way, I mean, I stand to be corrected on this, because I sort of heard this the other day, by the way, that I think what is called the Cape Town Marathon, right? It's either going to be renamed or it will be included in the name is Nelson Mandela.
I also heard it's a rumor, but we'll see if it's going to be.
But I think it's more than a rumor now that you've heard it too.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see.
When you listen to me, I feel important. When you hug me, I feel safe. When you talk with me, I learn.
Your love and attention helps your child grow strong and confident. Listen, comfort, and connect with them, because every child deserves to feel seen, heard, and loved.
Visit holdmyhand.org.za.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Well, Makwe Masilena's got all those numbers. You've got news locally and globally, Makwe.
Yes, starting with Cal Group, the interim update, agricultural and retail company operating in SA and Namibia. Profits as a recurring headline earnings per share up 17% due to strong gross profit margin growth. Resulting from the increase when it comes to the retail revenue, also agri-input revenue, also the increase in fuel sales. And yes, market participants were drawing comfort from signs of patchy progress in settling the Middle East conflict. Stocks kicked off the trading week in muted fashion as investors eyed a fresh effort by the U.S. to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, but efforts quickly faded, and blocking Ashraf the Strait of Hormuz has become a critical concern for global markets. Away from the war, market participants also have been eyeing taps on having taps on the massive boom when it comes to the investments in AI. And locally, our April factory mode improved as per ABSA PMI, returning to growth for the first time since September 2025, rising to 52.6 from 49 in March. But some of this improvement likely reflects front loading of demand, and that was ahead of expected price increases, and that itself starts to raise questions about the sustainability of this current recovery. And the likes of the rand are struggling as the US dollar is recently viewed as a relatively safe haven asset during this crisis, all because the US is a major energy exporter and may be shielded from oil price shocks. Conflicting reports about a hit on US warship in the Strait of Hormuz heightened fears of reigniting violence in the region. Oil prices jumped. As we are talking, Brent crude is up 1.4% at $110 a barrel. Yellow metal edged lower in a thin trading environment after the dollar firmed and oil prices spiked. And as it is, gold is down 1% at 4,565. Platinum down 1.8% at 1,975. Global stock markets rally, losing some of the steam, with the JSE dragging down by financials, and it is now down 0.3%, just like the rand down 0.3% against the dollar, 1668, 2264 against the against the pound, and 1956 against the euro.
Good, all of that. Thanks for that, Mark. We'll connect again tomorrow. An hour of the markets coming up 6 to 7 this evening.
Are we ready for a real conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, lots of comments about Zimbabwe. And my question is, if you were born in Zimbabwe, that's where you lived, like, why are you in South Africa? It's not a political question. It's a very personal question. What is it that informed you to come from that country to this country? What is it? And in fact, if I can broaden it, if you're an immigrant from any other country in the world, what is the answer to that question too? Why did you leave that country? What were the reasons? We're going to learn something. Churchill in Umtata. Hi, Churchill.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Yeah, good afternoon. Right.
Fine. Ashraf, I'm one of the people who've been very vocal to say, look, this kind of a commission must actually continue. I don't know what you will call it, even if Malanga retires, and I don't know the legislation that governs these commissions, but it has to continue because there's a lot of rot in our country. I know this one has been concentrating on the infiltration of the criminal justice system. But if you go to other departments, the rot that is in this country. And people in South Africa are starting to see that there's a lot that has been going on in our country. Even those that were not interested in politics, they now can see how our country is governed. People have been fooled by our leaders. People who pretended that, no, they're representing them, whereas they're actually representing themselves, their cronies and their families. They have been living a lavish lifestyle at our own expense. So we strongly feel that it should go even to other departments. Education, you name them. There's a lot of fraud that is happening.
Well, I think you make a very solid point. And, will this be the beginning, in a way that maybe the Zondo Commission was not, of a complete rethink in terms of the governance and the checks and balances that we have in South Africa? So, Churchill, thank you for that in Umtata. There's more. Ashraf, in Zimbabwe, we fought against the bullets of the white man. Now it's the bullets of the liberator. South Africans are lucky the ANC is not shooting to kill demonstrators or those who speak against it. Guys, you don't know what's it like to be turned on by your brothers and sisters simply because they are now in power. From Andrew in Butterworth. Right, what about the Annisfist conversation?
Hey, Ashraf, it's John Bluford. I'm just curious. Just want to
somebody, including the Minister of Education, when NSFAS was administered by people at universities who are based in universities, I remember we had to form queues, submit forms and all of that. How was it handled between then and now? Because now, ever since this whole online everything, NSFAS has just completely went the wrong way. People have found ways to actually steal money from government, money that was is supposed to educate the young people of this country. Now, must just do research. The politicians or whoever came up with that thing of online, they opened up a tap for these people to steal money. Whereas back then you had to bring forms and everything, make sure everything is proper. Between then and now, something went wrong when they opened this whole online thing.
So,
thank you.
But does it mean what? You don't go online? In today's world, you can't not be online. You see, stealing is stealing, online, offline. Maybe one is easier, but ultimately what you want is no one to steal, isn't it?
Good afternoon, Ashraf Manalintore in Devon. I am concerned as a member of a CPF about the remarks that were made by General Mkhwanazi regarding the incident that happened in Bambai in KZN where 3 members of a community policing forum were shot and killed by thugs. Mkhwanazi says we must not approach the criminals in the area without the police presence. But what we normally do, we call the police if we see any suspicious and dangerous individual walking around in the area with gun. But the police do not come and do not respond. What must we do? Thank you.
What must we do? I hear that. If anybody has answers, they must tell you what you should do. Or what advice can they give you? Thanks for that. Keep it coming. Why did you leave Zimbabwe? And really, it's not a political question. It's a personal question to you. What were the factors that caused you to leave your home country and come and live in South Africa? Peter in Cape Town. You can tell me. Hello.
Hi, Ashraf. It's Peter Moyo. Not spoken in ages.
I know, far too long, man. But the Moyo part tells me where you come from, so I got that. Okay.
Yeah. Ashraf, before I get into, let me actually just get into why I ended up here. I left Zim as a young accountant. I was meant to be going off to the US, and a few things changed. And then I thought, no, I'll wander around South Africa, Swaziland. Then I came to South Africa, met my wife, and I never left.
So your wife is the problem in that case?
No, she's not.
a good problem, I'm saying, yeah.
She's not the problem.
Yeah.
But however, at the time, when I was thinking of leaving Zimbabwe, unfortunately, Zimbabwe had already started showing totally the wrong signs. And I'm talking here, I'm going back to 1990.
Mm-hmm.
If you follow what Zimbabwe's problems are today, you go back to something that happened around about 1984 when the ruling party chose to give power to one man who could actually make decisions about who ran the party, who ran the government, and all of those things. And therefore, for you to be successful in Zimbabwe, you had to belong to one party called ZANU-PF. At the time, well, I've never supported ZANU-PF, but I said when we went into our liberation then, we had to make the country work well. I was one of the very few chartered accountants at the time that was prepared to work for the state, but because it was perceived I did not support the ruling party, you couldn't even work for the state.
Okay.
And that thing is exactly what it is today.
And that's why you moved. And you have no regrets?
Well, I certainly have no regrets. However, the other thing, it is concerning actually to see our president dining with people that do not observe the rule of law.
You mean, okay, South Africa's president, I gather you're referring to.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'm a South African citizen.
Right. Got that. Peter, thank you for that. We need to move on. Unfortunately, love to engage with you more. Maybe you'll call back soon, sometime soon indeed. Thank you for that. Right, what about the city of Cape Town and its legal challenges? Maybe after this.
As we celebrate 90 years of existence, SAFM takes you back to the voices that shaped a nation.
Now leave the SABC and see the tower block lit up, 27 stories of light. Move from Auckland Park into the shadow of the Hillbrow Post Office Tower.
This is the English service of the SABC. Here is the news, read by Patricia Carr. A member of the Planning Committee of the President's Council, Mr. Nick Turnich, has been appointed chairman of the Council's Community Relations Community.
90 years of trusted voices. This is SAFM. Ashraf Garda is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
Right, this issue should puzzle you. Keep it going, by the way, in terms of that question. Why did you leave Zimbabwe? But I can extend that because not everybody in South Africa is from Zimbabwe. I could say, why did you leave your home country, wherever you came from, to come to South Africa? You had to weigh up certain things. Why did you leave that country? In the meantime, the city of Cape Town, well, they say they're considering legal options after a recent High Court ruling on municipal charges were in favor of the South African Association of Property Owners at AfriForum. What does this mean? We speak to SAPOA about this. Neil Gopal, CEO of the South African Association of Property Owners. Neil, thank you for joining us here on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you. So you're going to have the city of Cape Town maybe challenging what has been ruled on. Let's give us context here. What actually has been the story?
Well, if we contextualize and go back, we noticed in the draft budget, last year's draft budget, that the city raised certain charges which we felt were unlawful and unconstitutional. And these charges were with respect to a citywide cleaning levy, the basic charge on water and basic charges on sewage, which were linked to property values and not on the actual usage of that service. So we challenged that, and the courts found in our favor.
Because let's look at it practically. I mean, so you're saying there's been like a fixture of, does that mean it doesn't take into account the relative wealth and lack thereof in certain communities? And I would take it, therefore, the income streams that are able to be earned from families in those areas, and they're paying the same prices, yeah?
Yes, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, we can cut it and slice it and dice it whichever way we want. But at the end of the day, municipalities should be acting in a manner. We believe that everybody should pay their fair share of rates and taxes. We have nothing against that. But I think linking it to property values and not on the actual usage is unconstitutional and unlawful.
So give me an example of, linking it to usage versus property values. How would that play out?
Well, let's, for argument's sake, say you have a apartment in Cape Town and you spend only 6 months there and you live 6 months for whatever reason in another city. You would be paying for basic charges on water and sewage not linked to any usage in an empty apartment. It'll be charged on the value of the property, even though you haven't used any of the services. That we feel is unfair and unconstitutional.
But let's say with water, I mean, you wouldn't consume any water, would you?
No, you wouldn't, but you'll still get a bill.
But for
which is linked to the value of your property.
Would you get a bill for water usage or for like a water component that makes up your bill, even if it's not used?
It'll probably be both. It's a basic charge for water.
Okay. Now, the city of Cape Town does not agree with you. What are they saying?
Well, they're saying that their interpretation and understanding of the law is different to our understanding and the understanding of the High Court. And the High Court found in our favor. Not only that, but the Minister of Corporate Governance and Traditional Affairs, who opposed the counter application, also argued that these fixed charges are nothing other than a tax. And it was not approved by the Minister of Finance either.
Where does the opposition come to in terms of the changes, right? Does it come from, you said, these property owners, where if you think of persons who has property in Cape Town, doesn't stay there for 6 months, I'm thinking about someone who's relatively wealthy. Does it come from them? Does it come from someone in many of the communities on the Cape Flats who, live to survive on a day-to-day basis?
Sorry, I didn't fully get.
I was saying, in terms of the concerns that you have raised, and not from the city of Cape Town, from yourself, right? That's now resulted in this court ruling. The constituencies are most concerned about the impact it's already had. Does it come from, wealthy property owners who don't live there for 6 months a year because they may be living in Germany? I don't know. Or does it come from people on the Cape Flats who are struggling to make ends meet?
No. This is a concern that all citizens of the country should have. We do not believe that municipalities in South Africa should have unbridled power and a blank check to do as they please. These charges are unlawful and unconstitutional. And we are concerned that, a municipality could go as far as, who knows, in any specific municipality, they may want to now link charges to the installation of streetlights, for example, or stop signs. And we feel that anything that is outside the ambit of the Constitution and the law should be challenged. It doesn't really matter whether you live in the Cape Flats or whether you live in a 50 million rand house in Camps Bay. The municipality should act within the ambit of the law.
Okay, now the city of Cape Town saying it may consider legal options. They're not necessarily going to follow that through. What for you then happens next, as it stands?
Well, I guess there's a couple of scenarios that play out. The municipality may elect not to appeal, and that's fine. If the municipality does, then I guess we would have to consider what action we would take on that front. But at this point, we haven't decided because we're not sure which direction the municipality is taking.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Neil Gopal, CEO of the South African Association of Property Owners. Fascinating one, and particularly if you are from Cape Town, both within the city or, living there. You could be an elected official or not. Either way, I'd like to get your thoughts on that and whether you would actually challenge that High Court ruling. What we will do is two things. We'll get your calls in a moment. That's one. But also, we'll chat to that story. It's been quite dramatic, that of Mazwi Impumelelo Kubeka, right? And he's been found, thank goodness for that, right? But what's the story behind that? We'll speak to his relative after the news at 5 as well. But next up, I'll get to hear from you.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, let's get further thoughts. Good afternoon. The traditional leaders should fend for themselves like the rest of us. Do you think that's true? The traditional leaders should fend for themselves, and if they want to earn an income like MPs, they need to work. But maybe say they are working. They're working in their own mini parliaments, and that's why you call them traditional leaders. Tell me something I don't quite know.
A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf. Ashraf, NSFAS is deliberately destroying our future. As a vulnerable person who's living with disabilities, I'm a visually impaired person, and I'm currently studying education at UNIS. NSFAS has paid for my 10 modules for the 2026 academic year, but they've yet to provide me with assistive devices. How can you pay for my modules? 10 modules, but you still yet to provide me with assistive devices. I'm stuck with 10 modules. I can't do my assignments. It's very sad, Ashraf. Lectures are busy chasing me left and right and center. I can't do anything because I don't have assistive devices. It's very sad, Ashraf, to be a visually impaired student at UNISA funded by NSFAS. It's very sad. Kasamula was a Pretoria social move.
Okay, got that. Well, you see, that's the other reality. The one is management, but it does come down and to think that everybody is going to misuse the way NSFAS is funded and how it affects you is a bit foolhardy. But you get these type of realities. By the way, talking about NSFAS, we'll play some of the sound from Buti Manamela coming up. We'll do that. Well, not now. After on 5:45. So listen out for that. Right. Here's another on Zimbabwe.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I'm not sure of the sampling of the study that was conducted by the professor regarding the Zimbabweans. But what I can assure you is that the Zimbabweans think the same as the black South Africans. They're complaining about the ANC, and when it's time to vote, they vote the same ANC they are complaining about. The same thing is happening in Zimbabwe. They can complain about ZANU-PF, the governance and the economy, but come next elections, they're still going to vote for ZANU-PF. So nothing is going to change.
Nothing is going to change. Really, nothing will change. Well, things do change, but we'll talk about that too. Thanks for joining us here on the National Pulse. It's 5 o'clock. Here's the news with Greg.
Thank you, Ashraf. NSFAS placed under administration and a weather service escalates its warning for KZN. Good day to you. The Minister of Higher Education and Training, Buti Manamela, has put the National Student Financial Aid Scheme under administration. This follows challenges with the scheme's leadership following recent resignations of some board members. During a media briefing, the Minister highlighted issues of poor governance and maladministration as some of the reasons for the decision. Meanwhile, the DA is calling on the Minister to urgently account to Parliament on what it describes as a deepening governance crisis at the scheme. The DA's Delmain Christians.
Even more concerning is the apparent breakdown in the relationship between the Minister and the board, raising serious questions about accountability, due process and institutional independence. At a time when NSFAS is already struggling with weak financial controls, failing systems and ongoing disruptions to student funding, this instability is unacceptable. Students cannot be caught in the crossfire of leadership failures. The Minister must act and he must account.
The Health Minister in Motsoaledi has called for calm as details around the hantavirus in the country emerges. A 70-year-old man died after falling ill en route to St. Helena Island in the South Atlantic Ocean, and his spouse later collapsed at Johannesburg's OR Tambo International Airport and also died. The two were passengers on an international cruise ship travelling from Argentina to the Canary Islands. Another passenger already died earlier on that ship, bringing the death toll to 3. Several passengers fell ill with severe respiratory symptoms while the vessel passed South African waters. One patient is admitted in a Gauteng hospital. The minister says an outbreak of the virus has not been declared.
We don't want people to start panicking because nobody had said we have got a pandemic or a breakout. We just at the moment have 2 people who have died and the second one who is still sick. We are waiting for results. We cannot claim that there's an outbreak of anything yet. So while we want people to be on the lookout, we don't want them to panic unnecessarily.
Disaster management teams for parts of KwaZulu-Natal are on high alert after the Weather Service escalated its weather warning in those areas for a high probability of significant damage. The Weather Service has warned that a cold front is expected to cause heavy rainfall and damaging winds. Spokesperson for the Provincial Cooperative Governance Department, Senzalo Mzila.
The MEC for Kokta, Reverend Tolaso Buthelezi, has stated that the immediate priority is the protection of communities in low-lying areas and settlements located near rivers and streams. The weather conditions could disrupt major routes such as the N2 and N3. Disaster management teams will be closely monitoring these routes for any incidents. Residents are urged to exercise extreme caution and follow all instructions issued by disaster management practitioners.
Weather forecaster Anyela Nsele says the thunderstorms could be accompanied by damaging wind and localized flooding in these affected areas.
Orange level 6 is expected over areas, just to mention Ogu, Zululand, Umkhanyagude, as well as King Edrayo over the course of the afternoon tomorrow into Wednesday morning. With those thunderstorms, we do expect them to be accompanied by strong damaging winds, hail, heavy downpours, as well as localized flash floods.
Top story. The Minister of Higher Education and Training has put the National Student Financial Aid Scheme under administration. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Hoos.
In sports, the Sawa Sports Ministry takes over Soweto Marathon. Hunt insists Stellies still fighting for top 8, and Proteas woman coach preparing to face Spin at T20 World Cup. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Joburg's N3 under pressure this afternoon from Buccleuch all the way down to Germiston. A crash at Marlborough Drive and then a breakdown at the Hilton Ace interchange. Also some delays staying south on the R59, running very slow from the N12 Reading interchange down to Swartkoppes Road. A couple of breakdowns on the M1 North around New Road with a delay from Buccleuch, passing those vehicles and all the way through to Samran. And then another breakdown on the N1 North just past the R21 up towards Rigel. And that's quite a heavy queue going up from Centurion side. Traffic backlogging to about John Foster Drive at this stage. Durban stationary vehicle near Clare Road Bridge. That's heavy on the southbound run from Inanda Road today. N3 out of town, Sherwood to Spaghetti Junction, still busy. M13 queuing from Pinetown, top of Fields Hill. So queuing up from Kloof area all the way down past sort of Maytime stores on your way slowly towards Hillcrest. And Cape Town this afternoon looking fairly heavy on the N1 out of town towards Okavango Road. Complications there as you come off at Okavango Road and turn north with a crash on Okavango at De Bron just up by the mall, and the N1 out of town fairly heavy from the elevated freeway to the Kuba interchange. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.3 FM in Rustenburg. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
I tell you what, one of the issues that's definitely grabbed the attention of all of us has been that of Mazwi Kubeka. And when there's been talks about him being kidnapped by different, foreign nationals and others, and linking it to his business, and you just wonder, and you're fearful in your mind to say, you know what, will we ever see this person alive again? So when I saw, what was it, Saturday night, I think it was, or yesterday, that Mazwi Kubeka's trending on Twitter, you're excited, but at the same time you're fearing the worst when you actually read that post. But then you find, thank goodness he's been. This was Saturday night now. Remember that. Thank goodness he's been found and he's alive. But there's big concerns about that. So just to recap, the businessman Mazwi Pumelelo Kubeka found. He'd been missing since the 2nd of April, so it's a month, right? But what do we know now in terms of now that he's been found, or there's been allegations, there's been kidnappers and they've hijacked him and kept him with them, and what's the story? But what's his mental and psychological and physical state of mind? Let's find out more about it with Nomhle Kubeka. We're going to chat to Nomhle Kubeka in just a moment, the sister of Mazwi Pumelelo Kubeka. Right, we'll do that right after this.
Kathy Mutlatlana on the National Briefing.
Did SANEF not investigate the matter?
No, they refused to. We asked SANEF. Anton Harbour wrote a letter to SANEF asking them to investigate the way advertising from the National Lotteries Commission was being spent, and he specifically mentioned Makudu's name in it. He specifically mentioned the Sunday World, which Makudu had edited in, I think, approximately 2019.
Nathan Geffen, he is with Ground Up, he's the editor there.
This is Kathy Mutlatlana on the National Briefing. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
So let's then talk about it. What is the position of the person, Mazwi? How is Mazwi? Nomhle Kubeka, the sister of Mazwi Kubeka. Thank you for joining us. And firstly, I think I reflect what many people reflect, is we are all so relieved that he's alive.
Yeah, that's true.
How is he anyway?
Yesterday he was okay. I think he was excited to see us. But today it's not good. I don't know. I think he had a bad dream. It was around. It was just after 5. I heard a scream. Then I went to check on him, and then he's been hysterical. He's crying nonstop.
Yeah, do we still have you there, Nomhle? No, I think we just lost that connection just for a second or two. Let's just try and reconnect on that issue. So there's a cold front that's hitting many parts of South Africa, Eastern Cape specifically tomorrow, and the alert is that it's going to be snowing. I'm not too sure which parts of the Eastern Cape, but there'll be some towns within the Eastern Cape region where it's going to snow. There's a comment, Ashraf, I wonder if the other voice notes we suggested that Zimbabwe and South African nationals continue to vote for the same parties in power. Let me just pick that up. If he's aware of the court case in South Africa that concluded that during Mbeki's presidency that Zimbabwean elections were not free and fair, and the last 2023 elections were found not credible too. All elections following the same patterns in Zimbabwe. Comes from anonymous. Right, let's get back to Nomhle Kubeka. Just for the moment, apology for that too. You were saying you think, today he's not been well because, of potentially a bad dream. Can you tell us more, Nomhle?
Yes, I'm assuming it was a bad dream because he was screaming. Then I went to check on him, found him. He was just hysterical. He was crying. He's been crying nonstop. He screams a lot, and it's almost like he's angry. You know that angry scream he just wants to let out. Then I tried to give him his medication before he can even eat because it was very early in the morning. He does calm down, but today he's completely different from yesterday. He's more quiet. He doesn't really want to talk.
Sure. It's such a horrific story, and yet, of course, you are delighted that he's alive, as we've mentioned in the intro. What can you tell us about what happened on Saturday evening?
Oh, okay. He says, I don't know, they just took him, they blindfolded him, they put him in the car, and then they went with him. They put him in the boot, they put him in the boot, then they drove with him, they got to the bush, and then they untied him because they had put these cable ties. So when they were in the bush, they made him to count 200. They took off the blindfold, made him to count 200. Then they pointed him with a gun while he was counting. And then he says, just then he just gave up. He knew that was it. After counting, he just realized that it was now quiet, but he was still scared because it was in the bush. He went to a tree and hid on the tree for some minutes. Then he realized that there was no one. Then he went out of the bush because he had so many blackjacks in his jacket, in this hoodie. Then he walked until he saw the lights of Carnival City. When he saw the lights, he went to the road. Then he started hitchhiking. Most cars just passed him until this taxi stopped for him. He told the driver that he was going to Fort Flores. Then he said they can go until that guy, he saw a roadblock, but I think it's probably for his own business. He let him go. Just there's a robot not far from the police station, and he let him go. Then that was it.
Why? And I understand. The story will develop further, but just so that what we know, what is your understanding of why was he your brother? Why was he released?
He In as much as it's like kidnapping, but it's what we thought that it was because of the location where he was in, and also something that I'd rather not talk about it now. Something that I'd rather not talk about it now, maybe when he's ready to tell his story, because at this point it looks like it's bigger than just fighting for a spot.
Yeah. And again, I mean, whatever you can't answer, don't. But there's been talk about these hijackers or kidnappers coming from different nationalities and groupings and with a specific agenda. Is there anything you can tell us about that?
Okay. Yes, he says the people who took him from when he was just walking, because we had a suspicion that they took him just outside the gate, which is true. It's like 6 houses away. That was also our suspicion based on everything that we saw. Secondly, it was 3 South African Zulu tribe. Then when he got to the so-called location where they kept him, the people who were, I'd say they were Malawians. It was 2 Malawian guys. Then the people who came to interrogate him for this thing that I cannot disclose, they were, even though he saw the Malawians, he saw the South Africans, but he did not see them. It could be the Pakistanis, it could be the Somalis, whoever they are. Those are the people he did not see, because whenever they were coming in, they would blindfold him.
Okay, so it's not clear who they are and what would be their overall motive, right? Let's go back to his own personal well-being, right? I mean, you mentioned he was crying. It's not been too well. Do I take it he's receiving, counseling and other form of health support, not just mental but also physical support? He's receiving that?
Yes, he received physical support. Then yesterday we had a meeting after the briefing, we had a meeting with the police and the mayor. Then the mayor committed to provide counseling, because I told him that the person that he is just going to need extensive counseling. Today, 2 gentlemen from the executive mayor's office, they came in for counseling. So, yes, he's about to start trauma counseling soon.
Lastly, what about all of you as family? So, I mean, the point is you don't see your brother for a month, and you hear about people being killed, and it's been so much in the last few days, right? You must fear for the worst at that time, isn't it? How did you people feel? Like, what sort of conversations were you having?
I think we had those conversations within ourselves. I'd say at first a big part of us, we were hopeful. We were like, no, even people because there are people who were insensitive who would talk about that he's no longer with us, and we just didn't want to have those conversations. But I think in the 3rd week, that's when but we never said anything to each other. We never spoke about it. Even just on that same Saturday, a medium just came to me and she told me that he was late. I kept it to myself because I'm the eldest one in 5 siblings. I kept it to myself, even though it was killing me. But yeah, I kept it to myself. We didn't want to talk about that. We're in denial, I would say.
Well, I mean, I think it's understandable. It's a different trauma, and different people respond very, very differently. Just the last thing for now, right? Yes, he's not in a good shape, but he's been released. Thank goodness for that. He's alive. Your brother's alive, right? What do you feel about it? What are your thoughts, your emotions? Is there anything you can tell us about what's going on in your mind?
I'm relieved, but now it's almost like I have a second mission. It is for these people to be caught. That's all I want right now. I just want them to be caught, and I also want him to get better, because the state he was in when he went to the police station, it still haunts me even now. I want him to get better, and I want these people I want justice for him.
Okay.
Mhm.
Talking about justice, just the last thing, what do you feel about, the different politicians, governments, Premier of Gauteng, others maybe in the local area where you live, Vosloorus, who've come up to offer support? What's your message to them?
Yeah, I'm so thankful for them, because even now I still believe if it was not for everyone who gathered on Friday, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. Because even him, because he was not even aware what was happening in the world, but he did say that at some point he was so confused as what was going on, because there was like this big meeting, people were fighting, people were arguing for a very long time, but he knows that it was probably that time, because he could pick up here and there conversations about releasing him and not releasing him. But yeah, I'd like to say thank you very much to everyone who made noise, everyone who came in on Friday. I strongly believe we have him today because of that.
Well, you're quite right. Who is to say all noises hurt the ears? Not in this case here. This is music to your ears, I'm sure. Nomhle Gubeka, thank you for your time. The sister of Mazwi Gubeka, who, as you know, Saturday night we heard about it, is suddenly released, goes to the police station, and he's fine. He's not in a good health space or mental space, but hey, he's fine. He's alive. And that's just something to celebrate. Nomhle, appreciate you giving off your time. It's a difficult conversation to have, but I'm glad that you did, because we can all learn from this. It's so important that we as people in the country are enlightened. So thank you so much, and pass on our regards when you can to your brother, to Mazwi. Thank you for this. This is the National Pulse.
You can become a victim of a legal problem: wrongful arrest, assault, uncontested divorce, rental disputes, maintenance matters, or labor problems. It can happen to you. Clientele Legal provides tough professional lawyers for an affordable monthly premium. Our legal team is standing by to assist you 24 hours a day. Join today. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
SAFM. Prime time all day long. You're listening to the National Pulse.
All right, we'll get an update later on, in fact, on more detail about that NSFAS collapse in this case here. We'll talk about that too, right, in terms of what that really means, right? When I say collapse, being placed under administration in this case here. Now, in the meantime, let's stay with the issue of education. So, last week we spoke to University of South Africa's CEO, Dr. Petiwe Matutu, about foreign academics, internationalization, global talent in South African universities, and maybe the pushback from others to say, well, there are far too many foreign nationals being employed in South African universities in some form of a position or the other, right? Now, the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education and Training noted University of South Africa's statement, and they've had their own responses. Let's find out about it with Tebogo Letsi, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education and Training. Tebogo, thank you for joining us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, to yourself. Good afternoon to all SAFM listeners, and thanks for having us.
All right. First of all, where do you stand on this debate, if I can put it that way, between those who say, hey, we're a university, we need to hire the right people, the best people. Yes, there's a sense of being understanding of demographics, but ultimately we must get the right people in a very globally competitive space that is academia.
The Portfolio Committee on Higher Education has expressly on many occasions indicated that we support the policy framework on internationalization. So we do support, we do acknowledge that universities are global institutions. They compete at that level, and we want graduates of our universities, to be recognized globally, and therefore we support the policy framework on internationalization. We want them to attract the best academics, but we've got laws in this country. In fact, the same policy framework says on 8.2a, it says that even though the policy framework is about attracting international talents, it says it must do so within the confines of the laws of this country. Now, what we are asking currently is, are our universities in line with in line of respecting the country's laws? And when we ask this question, I listened to an interview with Prof. Matutu last week. She was at pains trying to explain why we must not ask that question, or we must ask that question privately or in secret, so that people don't hear that the people that they elected to represent them in Parliament are actually doing what they're doing with us.
All right. Now that you've heard it, I mean, there's been the flip side of that, the other extreme, which is like that there's pressure even on universities, South Africa, to say, don't hire these foreign nationals. Why are you doing so when there are many South African academics? So notwithstanding the point about being globally competitive, do the others who are critical of University of South Africa, do they at any stage have a point?
No, I've not had an argument that says don't hire foreign nationals. The laws says to us, the Employment Services Act, Section 8.2a, it says there shall be no justification why a foreign national is employed when a South African national can do that particular job. It says go and get people from abroad, but it must do so. Here's a list of all the skills that we have done with you as USAF, as universities, as Department of Higher Education, and we agree that we are short on these skills. And these skills, you can go and get them outside. On any other, imagine bringing a foreign national to come and become a dean. That is an administrative post. We've got, many people who can do that, or rather an HOD. It's a highly position where we have so many professors in South Africa who can do that particular job. So you are creating, or USAF is creating an impression that South Africans are not educated, South Africans don't have the skills, and that is the issue that we want to caution them against. They released an unfortunate statement last week after we had a meeting with Stellenbosch University, who I must praise that they were honest, that they have indeed hired people not on scarce skills, not on critical skills list, but including people with only matric, who are not South Africans, including people with only diploma, only degree. They gave us the numbers, and about 40 or so people in that list were doing administration job, and we don't have a scarce skill or critical skill in administration.
So, lastly, what then did you do in responding to the public, the detractors who've been marching and have been effectively undermining what you've just said? They don't buy into what was said, that yes, these foreign nationals who are lecturers at universities, that they there and it's all fine. If they could help it, they would do it. They would remove them. What would you tell them? Some of them may be listening.
No, the USAF can't claim that, because a few weeks back we had a meeting with University of Pretoria. We also have that data. So as we are speaking now, we are getting this data. We are taking out the numbers of these people who have been hired, foreign nationals who have been hired in these positions, and we are going to give it to them to say, this is what you claimed when you wanted to portray a picture that was xenophobic. We don't want foreign nationals here. Here is proof that universities have actually transgressed against the loss of this country. And therefore, department and yourself, somebody must be held accountable. Go and open criminal cases against those, because no one must break the laws of this country and they are left unattended. And that is the reason why they are afraid to give us this information. They know that these things are going to come out. So USAF will be, really brave to tell us that people have not been appointed under in positions that are not listed under critical skills list or scarce skills.
Okay, well, you got us thinking. Appreciate you giving off your time here on the show. Tebogo Letsie, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education and Training. Another perspective on that issue. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. You can add your own thoughts about that. Again, in really just dealing with now university academics, lecturers in the main from other countries doing so in South Africa. There's been a call to say we don't need them. Surely, do you have another view on this? I'm sure you do. 5:30. Here's the news headlines with Greg.
Quick look at the headlines. The Minister of Higher Education and Training has officially placed the National Student Financial Aid Scheme under administration. The Weather Service has issued a warning for coastal areas between Plettenberg Bay and Cape Agulhas in the Western Cape. And the US military says its warships have helped 2 US-flagged vessels to transit through the Strait of Hormuz, breaking an Iranian blockade. I'll have all those details and more at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Today, just heading through to the Germiston area, there's a backlog of traffic really that you sort of pick up from around about Alex, just after London Road, and it goes all the way down to a breakdown just before the Heldnace interchange as you come out of Bedford, you into that Germiston area. Mike 1 through Houghton all the way to Crown, fairly busy. N1 South is slow today, from Buccleuch to Four Ways, and then from Four Ways all the way down to 14th Avenue. Some traffic light issues at that N1 off-ramp to 14th Avenue. N1 North sluggish getting through Buccleuch up as far as Samran today, and the N1 South looking very slow, coming through Centurion. If you just let Pretoria, backlogging there from John Foster Drive down in towards that Bruckfontein interchange territory. Durban's had a reasonably busy day, particularly if you're on the N2 southbound, with a breakdown before Spaghetti Junction. In fact, there are 2. There's one near Clare Road Bridge and one further south towards 4 Level. It's a queue that extends right back the N2 until about Queen Nundy Drive territory. M7 up the hill to Belleville Road, looking slow as you pick up that run through Queensborough. Cliffdale, Key Ridge, Ashburton, Pietermaritzburg still fine for N3 motorists today. Coming out of Cape Town, N1 heavy to Coburg interchange. The service road is all jammed up, passing Canal Walk out towards the N7 and back onto the main carriageway from Monte Vista out through to Brackenfell. That is quite slow. The M5 south still jammed from the Coburg Road, Brooklyn, as you make your way south to get into a busy N2 outbound carriageway. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sports with Duming Khapele.
Right, there's certainly some magic about, Chiefs Pirates, Sundowns Pirates, Sundowns Chiefs. I mean, there's just magic, isn't it? People
Absolutely.
want to watch these games.
Yeah, tickets to the Kaizer Chiefs and Mamelodi Sundowns clash are officially sold out at Fransveld, Loftus Fransveld. Amakosi, who travelled to Pretoria, sit third with 47 points from 26 games, while Sundowns lead with 64 points from 27 games. The Brazilians are chasing a 9th consecutive league title, while Chiefs are aiming to get 3rd place and CAF Confed qualification. Meanwhile, Stellenbosch FC coach Gavin Hunt says that his side remain determined to secure a top 8 finish as they prepare to host Orlando Pirates at Athlone Stadium tomorrow evening. Hunt admitted the disappointment at last week's loss to Polokwane City, but insists Stellies still have a chance, needing 3 wins from their final 4 matches, and he believes that wet Cape Town weather could work in his team's favour against the title-chasing Buccaneers, who thrive on pace and chance creation. Kick-off for this one is at 7:30. Meanwhile, Premier League action continues tonight with Manchester City facing Everton in a potentially decisive match in the title race. Everton will be without their defender Jared Branthwaite with a hamstring injury, and Jack Grealish, who's also out for ankle injury after his ankle surgery, and the rest of the players are fit. In terms of City, Josko Guardiola and Ruben Diaz remain sidelined, whereas Rodri's availability is deemed doubtful. In terms of athletics, South Africa's relay teams have achieved an outstanding result at the World Athletics Relays in Gaborone. They won 2 silvers and qualified 3 different teams for the 2027 World Athletics Championships. The men's sprint and middle distance teams were the top performers. Both teams finished on the podium and set new South African national records yesterday. In terms of cricket, Proteas women coach Mandla Mashimbi says that the team still has some work to do before the T20 World Cup in England next month. One key area is getting more comfortable playing against spin bowling, and although he is mostly happy with the team's preparation, he is concerned about how the middle order batters handle spin. He believes this is an important area that needs improvement, and South Africa will be hoping its 3rd time lucky after finishing as runners-up in the last 2 editions of the tournament. In rugby, Junior Springboks captain Riley Norton says that there is no need for added motivation when they face New Zealand, even after wrapping up the Under-20 Rugby Championship title with a game to spare on Sunday. Now, results elsewhere worked in South Africa's favour, with New Zealand losing to Argentina earlier in the day, while the hosts powered to a commanding 56-17 win over Australia to stay unbeaten. That outcome confirmed the Junior Boks as champions with an unassailable lead at the top of the standings heading into the final round. They now meet New Zealand in their last fixture on the 9th of May in what may be a dead rubber on paper, but Norton says that the rivalry ensures intensity will remain high. That's it from my side.
Okay, perfect. By the way, so yeah, it's exciting, and I mean, just that game, it looks like Sundowns are going to win the title on that side, on the one hand, and then as far as England's concerned, Arsenal fans, and there are many Arsenal fans in the building, I know that, who are probably hoping that Man City drops even a draw today. Can you imagine? By the way, that super fans to the World Cup
tomorrow will be announced.
Did they tell you to stick around? I was waiting for my call to say, can you please, I'm not getting it. But I did say I'll only go there if I have to work, not as a supporter.
If you don't have a visa, I wonder if the government also helps, or the sponsors.
I think that's a good question. I'll tell you what, at the moment, to get a visa to the USA is very long and very, very difficult. Like it takes at least 2 months, maybe.
But they did say they will prioritize those that want to go to the World Cup. It's just that I wonder
suppose
how
because
it's
country supported, because the country would support. But still, ultimately, that country must make the call. Do they want you or not?
Or not. Well, I'll be back with sports tomorrow.
Imagine Ibrahim Rasool getting a lucky ticket to go to the World Cup and sitting next to Donald Trump. No, that's not going to happen.
Investing shouldn't feel risky. It should give you security and good returns. Earn up to 7.25% interest per annum with an Absa Cash Invest Tracker for an investment of 100,000 rands or more. Your capital is guaranteed with immediate access to your funds. That's minimum risk, maximum benefit. Absa Private Banking customers can invest from just R1. Open via the Absa Banking app, a branch, a private banker, or 0860 111 515. Your story matters. Absa is an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
Kathy Mutlatlana on the National Briefing.
Did SANEF not investigate the matter?
No, they refused to. We asked SANEF. Anton Harbour wrote a letter to SANEF asking them to investigate the way advertising from the National Lotteries Commission was being spent, and he specifically mentioned Makudu's name in it. He specifically mentioned the Sunday World, which Makudu had edited in, I think, approximately 2019.
Nathan Geffen, he is with Ground Up, he's the editor there.
This is Kathy Mutlatlana on the National Briefing.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Well, as always, Jimmy's got all those numbers ahead of his show coming up from 6 to 7 tonight. But Jimmy, you've got a story about e-tolls, really? I thought it's history.
I thought so too, Ashraf. Good afternoon to our listeners.
But apparently the government has other plans. It seems there's been an agreement that has been signed to convert the e-toll gantries as they stand into an alternative use case. We're going to be looking at that with the organization Undoing Tax Abuse. We're going to speak to Chief Executive there, Wayne Duvenage, around that and get a sense of what this agreement potentially looks like and what implications it could have for South Africans. We've also got a conversation with the team at NAMSA, the Automobile Association, taking a look at the latest vehicle sales numbers that suggest that we're seeing the best monthly figures over 100,000 rands or 100,000 vehicles sold for the first time since 2015. So first time in almost 10 years or a little over 10 years. That we're seeing such good month-on-month sales from that perspective. Then we're going to have a conversation with the Tourism Minister, Minister Patricia de Lille, taking a look at the tensions in the Middle East, potentially presenting a unique tourism case for South Africa to take up some of the cancellations that we've been seeing. We know that anyone that's been following the sporting side of things, as Stumi does so well, the Formula One Grand Prix that were set to take place in the Middle East were both cancelled because of the Middle East tensions. So that is one such example of the impact that the closure of the Strait of Hormuz has had and the Iranian war has had on global markets. We're going to be taking a look at it from a slightly different perspective, in the tourism perspective, and seeing what South Africa could potentially be looking to benefit from that. And we have a conversation as part of our Digital Drive conversations, taking a look at the world of new electric vehicles with everything happening at the moment in the petrol world. And we know that petrol prices are set to go up yet again on Wednesday, painfully so. We're re-exploring whether or not we're seeing an uptick in new energy vehicles. There's new energy vehicles now that cost as little as 300,000 rand. So we're going to be taking a look at that in the context of the South African market, and perhaps seeing if the trends we're seeing on the fuel price side might be pushing people to buy new electrified vehicles. Before we get to those conversations, though, a sense of some of the market movements throughout the day. It's been almost a muted start in some respects to the week. Not such a great start on the currency side of things. 16.82 against the US dollars, where the rand is sitting at the moment. 22.76 against the British pound. 19 rand 67 is what €1 would cost you at the moment. The price of a Bitcoin, on the other hand, is up in dollar terms. It is just shy of $80,000. In rand terms, that means with the weaker rand, it is above 1.3 million rand for the first time in a while, at 1.33 million or 1.34 million rand, depending on where you are looking. Equity markets having a bit of a mixed start. Asia was mixed, with Sydney down, but the rest of Asia in the green. The European section, or the European markets rather, were all in the red. The biggest loser there, the CAC 40 in France, down more than 1%. Local markets not having a better day. Financials down 1.3%. Industrials flat. Resources down 0.1%. The top 40, 0.5% to the red. And the all share almost 0.5% to the downside. Commodity prices, the Brent crude price still above $110 a barrel, at about $112 a barrel at the moment. Concerningly high, basically at the all-time highs that we've seen in some of the traded platforms, at least for the last couple of days. Not looking good for the oil price as we start off the week, but other commodities seemingly also feeling the pinch. The gold price $4,538 a fine ounce, platinum $1,965 below the $2,000 a fine ounce level, and palladium below $1,500 a fine ounce. I'm going to take a look at these and other market movements as we come back later on. I want to get a sense of perhaps what we could be in for, as the month of May would potentially hold an interest rate conversation from South Africa, and we know that it could be the first interest rate hike we see this month, but still very, very early in the month. I think we have to get through this week of petrol price increases and then see where we end up. But of course, these conversations after the 6 p.m. news. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that. Enjoyed. Looking forward to those conversations with, many others, including Wayne Duvenage. And what's their plan around those gantries? It's true, isn't it? What is the plan? We'll get to you, because you're on the pulse, so we'll get to sense of what you think and feel about the issues that have moved the big conversations today, including that story about NSFAS being put under administration, right after this.
Is there ever a bad time for a good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Right, I tell you what, let's start with that NSFAS story, because it's a big story indeed. The Minister of Higher Education and Training, Buti Manamela, held a media briefing earlier today, and he spoke about NSFAS. So we now know already it's been put under administration and the issues of poor governance and maladministration amongst the issues that have been labelled. Here's the Minister.
To access higher education and training. For many families, NSFAS is not an abstract institution. It is the difference between exclusion and opportunity, and between hope and despair. Any instability within NSFAS therefore has implications not only for universities and TVET colleges, but for students, households, communities, the national fiscus, and public confidence in the ability of the democratic state to advance social justice. It is for this reason that government has a responsibility to act when the effective functioning of the institution is seriously undermined. Today, after careful consideration of the legal, governance, financial and operational circumstances affecting the NSFAS, and acting in terms of Section 17A 2D of the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, Act 1999, I've taken the decision to place NSFAS under administration and appoint an administrator. This decision was not taken lightly. It follows a long process of engagement, legal assessment, governance intervention, and consideration of alternatives. And so allow me to briefly point out how we arrived at this point. When I assumed office as Minister of Higher Education and Training, concerns already existed regarding the constitution of the NSFAS board. Following legal assessment and advice, the department approached the courts through self-review proceedings concerning the processes through which the board had been constituted. We took this step because government cannot knowingly ignore potential legal irregularities in the constitution of a statutory body entrusted with billions of rands in public funds and the futures of millions of students. As the process unfolded, the board experienced a series of resignations, including the resignation of the then chairperson, Dr. Karen Stander, and other members of the board. In an effort to stabilize governance and ensure continuity, an interim chairperson, Dr. Mugwena Maluleka, and deputy chairperson were appointed. Subsequently, requests were made for the filling of vacancies on the board. However, having already approached the courts regarding the legality of the board's constitution, it would have been contradictory and potentially irrational for government to proceed as though that issue did not exist. At the same time, broader institutional concerns at NSFAS continued to deepen. These concerns did not emerge from rumor or speculation. Many of them emerged from NSFAS' own reports, engagements, governance records, and also responses to the department.
Well, there we are. Interesting. Interesting is like a soft word, isn't it? It's the type of development you don't want to hear. What more do you understand about putting NSFAS under administration, and the key words here, poor governance and maladministration? And if that's the case, it didn't just start last week. It's been an ongoing conversation, isn't it, regarding NSFAS and what that means. And when you have this poor governance and maladministration, well, you ought to know who's going to be most affected by that. Right, you get a feel for the pulse. I need to talk to you next.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
Well, let's get to some of your thoughts now. One on the issue of funding recovery. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the SAFM listeners. Ashraf, it is very disappointing to hear that the SIU has identified 1.1 billion after the investigation on the Johannesburg, eThekwini, as well as the Tshwane municipalities. This is very disturbing because this money is lost through corruptions and the recovery rate is very low. It's disappointing. Sekwanele, Pretoria.
Okay, got that. What about the Cape Town High Court ruling?
Hi, Ashraf. It's Simpiwe here. I think the ruling of the
High Court is actually spot on. It needs not to be challenged. And the gentleman that is there, he is on. I like his points. You know, he's very articulating this matter very, very well. And I'm with him. I stand with him together with the decision that has been taken by the High Court. It's Mbiwa here. Thanks, Ashraf. Bye.
Okay, got that. And there were technical glitches today at the Madlanga Commission with Witness G. Remember, on camera, very different, but there were huge technical issues around that. Anyway, here's a comment about the commission.
Good afternoon, Ash, and good afternoon to the team. You know, for me, when I look at the Madlanga Commission, I think the difference that they've made, I think, was to have the right people for the job. Having Commissioner Baloyi, Commissioner Khumalo, and the chairperson himself, I think for me, they've made the difference if you were to compare to other commissions that we've had before. And my worry now is that we will obviously get success on this one. And tomorrow might have another commission. But here's the thing, we might not have those three. Thank you. This is Luzugo in the Eastern Cape.
Got that, okay. And there's more. Remember, we're talking about 100 days. Can you believe it? 100 days for the Madlanga Commission. So early on, I asked you that. What would South Africa look like after the Madlanga Commission? And I also asked you earlier on, for the many people who've lived in Zimbabwe, Zimbabweans living in South Africa, like why? Why are you in South Africa? And I'm talking about a personal response, not a political response.
Hi, Ashraf. It's Njenji here in the Chegwin. 100 days of Madlanga. Well done to the KZN Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Mkhwanas. We owe him a lot, that guy. I'm hearing your other guy says thanks to the president for selecting the Madlanga Commission. He was forced, just like Zuma was forced to establish the Zondo Commission. So I think the guy who did a lot on this thing here is General Mkhwanas. Keep it up, Mkhwanas. Keep it up. Well done. Shabok.
Well, look, it comes up often. Imagine if Mkhwanazi did not say what he said last year. Can you just imagine?
Good afternoon, Sir Ashraf Gada. I believe Mr. Herman Mashaba, the leader of Action SA, is happy wherever he is because Action SA is growing in leaps and bounds in Limpopo. People are joining Limpopo in big numbers here in Limpopo. I'm sure and quite certain that Action SA is going to be the strong opposition party in Limpopo in the upcoming local election and 2029 national election. So this is Nyolen Mafefe. Thank you.
Okay, got that. In fact, there's another tweet from Intando Kwape saying, it's not hard to say the match between Stellenbosch versus Pirates is sold out as well. Okay, point taken. Traditional leaders should fend for themselves like the rest of us. There's another year's one on the universities.
Hi, Ashraf. This is Sabata from Teben. On this matter of the hiring of foreigners in our university, it's simple and straightforward. Do not hire people that possesses the skills that we have in the country. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, so you basically think be pretty practical about it. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Thank you for the good topic. I think the most important thing is to check with the Zimbabweans who are in South Africa or even those who are in Zimbabwe. Why are they worried about their government, the way they are running economy and the way they are running the country generally? But when it's time for elections, they go and put the same ZANU-PF and they cross the river to come and wait from this side and watch from this side and complain about their governance. But they put ZANU-PF many a times in the governance.
Okay. I suppose some people have said, how do you keep them in power that long? But then you've got the alternative. Many say you can't be critical of that country's leadership, not in the way that you can call in to this show and be critical of the leadership of the country. We take that for granted.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Tandasa from west of Johannesburg. Now, I think the Madlanga Commission has been quite effective, leading with evidence and people forthcoming to testify. It's one of the effective commissions of inquiries that have been initiated by the head of state. If I had the powers, I would extend its remit and its scope to city of Johannesburg, city of Tshwane, which partially, yes, they are already, or even to take a deeper dive within the other criminal justice system, but maybe, with a focus on local government, because it is the cold face of service delivery.
Okay, and I'll get more on in similar vein. 100 days of the Madlanga Commission. What are the key takeouts for you of the Madlanga Commission now, and to look ahead? What would South Africa look like when the Madlanga Commission's done?
Hi, Ashraf. This is Nati here. Well, I think looking at the 100 days of the Madlanga Commission, yeah, we've seen positive results. I'm one person who was doubting the whole thing before it commenced. I was doubting if ever there's anything positive that will come out of the Madlanga, but I've been proven wrong, and I'm happy about the results so far. I so wish that it can be made permanent, or else maybe the president establishes something in his office that will operate like the Madlang, so that it can clean the government departments of corruption. Thank you.
Okay, and this is an interesting one, very important. Yeah.
Well, good afternoon. I want to congratulate the advocate Gwat Toby for his appointment to the Constitutional Court as acting judge for 6 months. However, I foresee a high-profile case or an important case that he possibly would have defended, would have represented in court. Hence, Ramaphosa is removing him from that, or let's say from the ground, and placed him there. That's just my, thinking. So it could be that he is being removed because there are cases that he is involved in, and he is quite a senior person.
So you're saying what? He's being neutralized?
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to the SAFM listeners. It's Mfunda from Durban. The Madlanga Commission actually opened a can of worms based on just a simple concept. We now know that police are in collusion with hardened criminals. And it's just a pity because we've got whistleblowers and people that like Babita, who all literally looks like they died in vain based on the fact that you report what you're seeing and only to find out that the same people that you're reporting to are in collusion with the people that you're reporting. So it's very sad what's happening in the country, honestly.
I'm looking at, I hear that, okay. But by the way, have you followed that story of the crocodile airlift? It's the most bizarre story, but what a tragedy of this 59-year-old man who, what's his name, Gabriel Batista, he was swept away last week, right, in this raging flood, tried to get his bakkie over this river and of course was swept away. And the stories that he went downstream and into the mouth of a crocodile. And they identified him because of his ring. So there were body parts, and this crocodile, they knew, because the big question people have been asking, how did you know the crocodile has got a human being in the body of the crocodile? And the story goes that they were able to use drone videos to identify from the top unusual behavior of the crocodile, because he was sort of standing, he was isolating himself. There was just something about him that was different. It's quite remarkable what people do. Anyway, then this crocodile was euthanized, right? Then airlifted. Then they saw the body parts. And to confirm that it was that person, then they found his ring. But besides the ring, which is a horrific story, of course, for the family, they also found about 6 pairs of shoes of others, which means that this crocodile has been eating other human beings in the past, not necessarily immediately, but sure, what a story. Ashraf, it's my first comment. I'm happy this guy has been found alive. What were you saying? I'm happy this guy has been found alive. I think that much that was on the weekend did help. That march that was on the weekend did help, because SAPS wouldn't find him. South African police are useless. My name Eric. You see, you can't say South African police are useless, because that's like all. I mean, have you seen? Here's an example. This airlift from Pretoria, from the crocodile airlift. People are remarkable in this country. There are people who are shoddy, but there are also others who are very, very good. Here's the last one I can play.
Good evening, Ashraf. No, the president wasn't forced to appoint the Matlanga Commission. He had options, or choices rather. As a result, there were people who were against him forming that commission, saying that he was wasting time. Now they are all glad. I can't see anyone, we can't find anyone now who's against it now. Kudos to the president. Thank you.
Okay, look, that's where we're going to leave it. That's the show. So there was no Madlanga Commission report back as we would have today. We'll do it again tomorrow. Set your alarms for 3 p.m. as per always. And by the way, this being Africa Month, to coincide with Africa Day, we'll have a big focus on the continent, on the countries, on some of the big movers and shakers. So listen out for that from tomorrow. You'll notice that shift as the theme that I'm certainly looking forward to. In the meantime, thanks for listening. You can catch podcasts of what we do on our on the SAFM website. Here's Greg Coast with the news at 6.
Thank you again, Ashraf. NESFAS placed under administration and U.S. warships escort vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. Good evening.